Good. Yeah. Life is good, bro. Yeah. I got something to say. Yeah. Good. How you doing, Chris?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
The one man stand.
Building a brand, you know. There's a level to it.
I'll be trying to you just head on. Yeah.
Well, did you print it out or have it handed out so you can read the whole thing that you don't have time to say? Go get it. Yeah, you can.
Escambia County Redevelopment Agency regular meeting, June 8, 2023, 4:25. Please turn your cell phone to vibrate, silent, or the off setting. The Board of County Commissioners, any person to speak regarding the item on the agenda. The speaker is limited to 2 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairman. Was there proof of publication?
Yes, the CREA meeting has been properly published through the Escambia Sun Press on June 1st, 2023.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have any speakers for public forum?
Not to my knowledge.
This is a CRA meeting. I'm sure y'all don't. You would have to register for an item on the agenda. Thank you. Are you registered for an item on the CRA agenda? No, this is CRA. I'm sorry. Public forum will happen after this meeting is over. No problem. Technical and public service consent agenda?
Recommendation concerning Community Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes, May 4th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I move the technical public
have a
service
motion.
consent agenda.
Second.
Please vote. That passes unanimous. Thank you so much. Budget and finance consent agenda?
We have three items for your approval. First one's recommendation concerning residential rehab grant program funding and lien agreements. Second one, recommendation concerning the cancellation of residential rehab grant program liens. And third one is recommendation concerning residential roof program funding and lien agreements.
Mr. Chairman, I move items 1 through 3, A's and B's on it all.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Please vote. That passes unanimous. Thank you so much.
That's it. No discussion.
No discussion?
No.
If there's no discussion, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much. At this time, we will go directly into our public forum. Obviously, we have a lot of speakers, so we're going to try to adhere, and we know we do have a long board meeting in store for us tonight. Our first speaker will be Drake Dimitry, D-I-M-I-T-R-Y.
Do my best to squeeze this down, but I really think you ought to give us 3 minutes. That's another story.
Right.
AFLC, the Alabama-Florida TPO, Transportation Planning Organization, quote unquote, aims to achieve optimum engagement of the public when developing major planning documents and programs. Quality public participation is solicited before the planning process begins and continues throughout the process, helping to avoid, minimize, and mitigate project impacts, providing the best solutions. The primary goal of the TPO public involvement team are to inform the public, to the maximum extent possible of available resources and opportunities. Involve the public early and often in the transportation planning organization. Include the public, reach out to the geographical, organizational, and demographic communities that compose the TPO planning area to increase the public's opportunity to participate in the developing transportation plans and services. I'm reading from their website. Improve the public participation process. Continually identify and implement ways to improve the public participation processes. So we know that the previous C2 and other commissioners essentially disabled and vacated the Citizen Advisory Committee component of the TPO. So what does that do to the organization's purpose I just described? Completely disassembles and neuters it of its democratic power. Is it any wonder that the certain power-hungry individuals and groups have sought to steer the TPO from its intended democratic strengthening function to another super tool in the hands of the elite elected or appointed municipal planning officials even? I heard some of the seats of the CAC may have been filled. The TPO website has not been updated in a couple of years. And it says the Florida-Alabama CAC is comprised of members of the public who express an interest in transportation planning. Prospective members are recommended by the TPO board representative and must be recommended for approval by the local TPO representative if they are interested in serving on the Citizen Advisory Council. I'm requesting my local rep, Mike Kohler, and the board to vote or call a special meeting workshop to address and rectify these issues and also to involve the public early and often, as it says, in the transportation planning process. To look at the results, since the decision-making power was rested control of by the commissioners, yes, no public input. Okay, so I'll end it there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a quick comment. Hey, Drake, I put Jim Kaufman on that board right after I was elected, so we have a representative.
Okay, well, what is that the total? That is what I would ask.
For District 2, so I already put someone on that board.
Is there one or two people?
Well, everyone gets to elect someone, but it doesn't affect our district. And I just wanted you to know that we put someone on that.
I would ask the rest of the board, have they appointed citizen seats on the CAC component? Mr. Bender says he has. And I believe there's two, isn't there, per? Okay. Well, okay, I still request a special meeting, like the very excellent and successful one you had yesterday at the park. You know, it shouldn't be a big deal. That's what the intent and the letter of the claims of the TPO are on their website, that they're going to actively solicit public engagement, right? So, please, thank you.
Thank you. Next week is Stan McDaniels.
Right. Hey, thank you, gentlemen. I want to first apologize about last time I was here. I was very emotional with my current custody case, and it's just been a terrible system to have to navigate. I've also had a chance to read through HB 7065, and there are grants available. And I also checked out the Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse, where agencies are supposed to be available, and there is not an agency available within 100 miles of Pensacola. So I just thought I'd bring that up to you guys' attention. I also wanted to bring up to everyone's attention that we have fallen on our duties as we the people. And if you'd like to stand up with me, you can check out tacticalcivics.com and, you know, watch the little video on it. It talks about convening a citizen grand jury and filing a militia with the county so that we do it that well-regulated way and we follow the law. So I hope anybody will join me in this new endeavor through Tactical Civics and creating a chapter here in Pensacola. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stan. Keith Bowe.
DOMS, District 1 Medical Examiner's Office. What I have to say would take longer than the 2 minutes y'all have time to listen, so I won't attempt to do so. Instead, I'll just ask the dais to think about this for these 2 minutes, as it's again not on the agenda. Where it could be discussed freely here in the sunlight if put on the agenda. We've all heard about the meeting at Smokey's Restaurant in order to request letters sent from the funeral directors to support the defiance of the project, or the splitting of the project, or anything but advancing the project that I can see. There's even a video out from Andrew McKay taking a tour of the dilapidated facilities, showing how poor the conditions are in the morgue. They can't be sanitary. There's got to be cross-contamination under those conditions. Now I request a brief moment of silence and requiem for the Domes project as we lay it to rest for lack of consideration, lest you are each willing to give us your thoughts during your opening remarks, because I would like to have some feedback. I don't know if I'm getting anywhere here. I will await my last few seconds while each of you consider if we should let this die a silent death of neglect. I'll stay for the opening remarks should anyone on the dais choose to speak on this, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for the generosity of the 2 minutes for me to speak. Thank you very much. Respectfully.
Thank you. Chris Kerb.
How y'all doing today? Chris Kerb with Flood Defenders. One of my flood defenders sent me an interesting New York Post article from May 30th. It said, Big Short investor who predicted the 2008 housing crisis warns of another financial disaster in the housing market. The investor suggested history will repeat because the mortgage market is underestimating the risk posed by flooding. If you haven't heard, The Big Short is a 2015 movie about financial professionals who predicted and profited from the build-out and subsequent collapse of the housing bubble in 2007 and 2008. It's a pretty good movie. This has also been shared. He shared his worries in a CNBC article in April, calling The Hidden Time Bomb. And while most investors are skeptical of impacts of climate and flood risks, there has been a recent study done on this where this gentleman apparently got this information from. It's called U.S. Housing Market Overvalued by $2 billion Due to Unpriced Climate Risk. That's a study done, and it's published in the Natural Climate Change, Unpriced Climate Risk and the Potential Consequences of Overvaluation in the U.S. Market. That was authored by researchers from the Environmental Defense Fund, the First Street Foundation, the U.S. Federal Reserve, among others. Basically, here in Florida, our properties are overvalued by $50 billion. What has this got to do with us? Well, aside from the impacts of homeowners, municipalities that are heavily reliant on property taxes for revenue are highly vulnerable to budgetary shortfalls. The municipalities concentrated in coastal counties as well as inland areas. In these areas, local government may need to adapt a fiscal structure to continue to provide essential public goods and services. I'll send you this by email because I got a lot of other stuff by it, that couldn't get out in 2 minutes, but there's a bunch of hyperlinks on it that I'll send to you. Thank you.
You got 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You're good. Dan Dorford.
Sandra needs to give my presentation, please. How you doing, gentlemen? Good evening. I got some handouts for the commissioners, please. In here immediately is some letters from some local cities, commissioners. Very nice read. Thank you very much. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you for your commitment to our citizens of our community. I'm sorry I haven't been able to attend more meetings lately, but some health challenges and my grandchildren have quite simply consumed me. Anybody got any grandchildren? Yeah, they steal your heart, right? And so tonight I want to thank you for your support and very warm comments from my last presentation. You told me, Dan, you have some really great ideas. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that response. That feedback is very meaningful, and sometimes we all need a little lift, to know we're on the right path. So what I want to tell you is thank you for the support. But what's important, that tonight we must recognize the forward thinking and leap of faith by this group right here, these gentlemen, our leaders, to invest in innovation to move our community forward, to try something different, a new technology to fix historical challenges in flooding. That's a big leap of faith, gentlemen. Y'all deserve a round of applause. You know, some guy coming in here telling y'all he can change permeability and change the world. We got some really great stuff going on, and thank you for engaging. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. So to the citizens of Escambia County, this board is to be congratulated for the commitment to the community's future, to increasing public safety, and ultimately to our prosperity as you steer Escambia County into the future. Again, thank you for the commitment and a leap of faith for trying something different. That takes a lot. You know, you guys are fiscally and fiduciary responsible. Commissioners and citizens of Escambia County, these are some preliminary results of the board's investments
Dan, will you wrap it up? Your
into the
time's up.
future mitigation and implementing augmented permeability. So at Lincoln Park, yes, sir, give me 10 seconds. Lincoln Park, where we installed, the ground is noticeably more firm and less moist in the areas of the infiltration arrays. Pond 95, we changed the percolation rate from 1.71 to 3.65. Tonight, I think you're going to vote on Ayers Ditch. Again, it's a flat ditch a mile long. How do you get rid of your water? And then Fiddler's Pond. So Commissioner Berry, thank you for the investment. And gentlemen, I appreciate
Dan,
your time.
listen, I'm not going to cut your time because I appreciate your investment.
Yes, sir.
Of your resources, particularly in Lincoln Park. That's been something that kids couldn't play in because it's been muddied up since I was elected.
Thank you.
In areas which is important. I hope you continue to work with Joy and
Yes.
Michael Rose, and if that's not happening, let me know. But I do appreciate it because since I was a kid, there's been a problem at Lincoln Park of being able to utilize that. So I appreciate you and certainly appreciate what you're doing at Aries. So
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank
I
you,
appreciate it.
gentlemen.
So please just continue to work with Joy and
Yes.
Michael Rose.
Thank you so much.
And you'll have my support.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Teresa Blackwell.
Good evening. Teresa Blackwell. I live in Beulah. Okay, we had a town hall on Monday, and Commissioner Burgash took a lot of time to talk about various people talking about OLF 8 prior to 2013. That deal came to us in 2013. That's when it came out of the sunshine, and the people, the residents of this county, put their money down. So that's when it started for us. And really, it's irrelevant. It is a county project, one that our residents have paid for, so we need to be considered. So with all that history, we didn't have time for a public forum. We got to ask questions, and I did get the last word, a comment. So the big news there was that a counteroffer has gone out to D.R. Horton, and Commissioner Burgash said it holds on to 250 acres of the 540, nearly half the property. So, and I would advise holding on to the civic space and the town center, especially because Horton wants to build, right on that part, the woods. So, and also going out again, because others should have a chance, because now it's just a totally different deal. It's ridiculous. This should be offered again, and with it being negotiated out of the sunshine, the public has no say-so on what's happening. So that is just doesn't seem appropriate. The contract also should say that D.R. Horton will adhere to the intent of the master plan and the design code that are in the master plan. If we do that, the plan can change, but that will hold it to quality. And we know we can't just trust D.R. Horton on quality. You have to hold them to it. If they agree to that, that's a good start. But even then, we need more inspection because repeatedly in the past, they have agreed to things and then take the fines. I heard that from Marina Corey.
Teresa, would you close it down?
It happened, yes, I will. It happened right next door to her in Kentlands. They agreed, didn't do what they said they were going to do. So those, and also affordable housing, what's happening with that out of the sunshine?
All right.
Thank you.
Understood. You know I support you on affordable housing. Our next speaker is John Kellis.
John Kellis, Nature Trail. I'm in great shape. I forgot my glasses and I can't hear what everybody's saying. So if I repeat things, forgive me. I missed your town hall meeting, Commissioner Burgosh. I caught part of it on the video. It showed a tremendous turnout. It looked like it was really good. I heard you say once again, as I've heard you say before, that you support the master plan that we all had agreed to, and the zoning requirements that go along with it. And I would hope that you've got a couple of your partners up here at this serious session that will support you in that position. I was surprised to see that you wanted to retain ownership of 250 acres. That's sizable. I would assume it's the light industrial and commercial, since we don't have any picture of it or idea. I would hope it would include the civic part. And I would hope you would pass on to people whoever buys this place that they truly support this master plan with something in the contract that makes them do that. You are changing the whole scope of the project, and I've heard mention of another possible interested party. So are you putting another RFP out on the street? How is this going to come about then? Can you enlighten me on that a little bit?
John, thanks. Can you close it down? Your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Victoria Griffin.
Hi, Commissioners. Been a while. I don't have anything to complain about. But I wanted to bring up, I was thinking about what some of these other people are fighting on. And I have not been staying informed on everything that they're going through right now, but I had some ideas. One of the things I was always told was, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. So I was thinking about some of the things that seem to be coming up. One is that, first of all, this is really not my fight, but R.O. Thornton may be coming to you all with an old dynamics that has worked in the past. Things are changing. Storefronts are not as big as they used to be. I used to live in Texas, and I know all about R.O. Thornton and about the way the shopping centers are and all the homes and stuff, and I hope they build better homes for y'all. But some of the ideas that I was thinking about was that is a very far out area that is away from all the hospitals. So I was thinking that some of the things that when I listened to you all talk, that a hospital would be good to be built out that way. A college campus, YMCA for the kids, for activities, for the parks and activities. Also, I've been really trying to encourage in this community for a 55-plus adult active community. There's not one anywhere in this area. It would be a huge development. A lot of these things that I'm bringing up would bring in a lot of jobs, a lot of income, and it would just be a good area, a good thing for that area, I believe. But the other thing I came to here is to say thank you for finally coming up with the funding for our bridge at Wood Run. We really appreciate it. And also, thank you for getting the PAC committee back in gear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Eric Sharplin.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Eric Sharplin, 318 Garfield Drive. I wanted to come down here tonight and offer my support for Commissioner Jeff Burgosh on OLF8. I think he's doing a good job. All these complaining just needs to stop. I saw they were up in arms about y'all using 4 trucks for a parade. And it's like, this group just constantly wants to complain. And then they put Connor Mann up to write an article. I know he didn't write it himself. Because Jeff has got the right experience. It's like when one candidate said, just because you run the country store, you're not qualified to run Walmart. And that would be a mistake putting someone like that on this county commission seat. And everybody says, oh, he's such a nice young man. But the complaining folks, it just needs to stop. I want to compliment Commissioner Kohler. You were very colorful the other day in that red shirt at the parade. But yeah, I just wanted to come down, Commissioner Bergosh, and just let you know I fully support you. You know, they're always making fun of you. They call you King of the Hill and stuff, and these type of games. And that's all they do in ECW is just criticize. And I'm sorry, this Miss Blackwell lady, if she's not complaining, she wouldn't be happy. Because you know something to complain about, she'd still be complaining. And it's just, if you want something done, you got to be nice to people to expect them to be nice to you. But anyway, Commissioner, I thank you for your time.
Thank you for saving us 30 seconds. We appreciate that. You're being nice. Jeff, I didn't know you were called the king.
Neither. They normally don't call me anything nice like that.
Yeah, King Jeff. I mean, I hear you. Oh, wow. Candy Alcott.
Good afternoon. It's been a year since I've spoke to you about how I feel about the homeless situation in Pensacola. I appreciate Mr. Bergosh also for many reasons that I won't waste 2 minutes on, but I need him to know that. Okay, so here's what I want you to know. I watched 7 fires destroy 2,500 homes in Lake County, California. I was there within days for 5 years on site. I want you to imagine Pace and Palafox burnt down 5 miles this way, 5 miles that way, and 5 miles that way. I hear propane tanks blowing up, fire trucks on fire, firemen being lost. This happened in California. The Valley Fire was caused by wiring on a hot tub. Your homeless people are going to end up being your heroes, bringing people out of those areas. Your elementary school, the teachers are going to end up being heroes, trying to evacuate those children through a single-file tunnel with roads that are on fire. I've seen melted roads. Your helicopters are going to be landing in Brent Park, evacuating burn victims somewhere else. There's no room for that many here. 1,100 homes at once. The fire traveled 21 miles in a matter of hours. So now that you've imagined that, I have a short statement. The generalizations and misleading statements recently released in the news are pure sensationalism. They add to the existing negativity regarding people who are in need in Escambia County. First, the Alfred Washburn Center is a safety net the county needs and the clients deserve. This is a humanitarian crisis, a disaster. It's an emergency that needs to be declared, and I'm serious about that. Emergency housing of 150 to 200 can be assembled in 10 days. I've seen it happen 7 times within 2 weeks. I don't know, and I don't care who pays for it, be it the county, the state, FEMA, the feds.
Go ahead and close it down, please, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chris Lapa.
Thank you, Commissioners, for letting me come speak today. My pastor, Kent Langham, came before you last month and asked you to pass a resolution that would make Escambia County a sanctuary county for the preborn. We are asking you to interpose for the preborn of Escambia County. The doctrine of the lesser magistrates is rooted in the historical biblical doctrine of interposition. Interposition is that calling of God which causes one to step into the gap, willingly placing oneself between the oppressor and his intended victim. The primary duty of the lesser magistrates regarding the doctrine of the lesser magistrate is threefold. First, they are to oppose and resist any laws or edicts from the higher authority that contravene the law or word of God. Second, they are to protect the person, liberty, and property of those who reside within their jurisdiction from any unjust or immoral laws or actions by the higher authority. Third, they are not to implement any laws or decrees made by the higher authority that violate the Constitution and, if necessary, resist them. Commissioners, we are asking you to put yourself between a potential abortionist and our preborn neighbor. Please pass this resolution and make our county a sanctuary county for the preborn. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Mike Kimbrell.
Good evening, Commission. Michael Kimbrell, 6200 East Shore Drive in District 1. And I also have two active businesses, one in District 2 and one in District 3. I am coming before y'all tonight. I kind of feel like that mad scientist in the movie that has all the papers that's coming before the board to tell y'all about an impending disaster that I hope y'all listen to. A couple of months ago, our code enforcement violated a local property owner over some encampments that was on this property owner's property. At that hearing, I was present. The magistrate acknowledged that there was roughly, I would say, 50 to 70 camps on the property. And then ordered that the property owner remove those encampments as well as all of the garbage and debris that is accumulated. At that moment, I started reaching out from hearing that to many different branches of our local government and staff, asking where can they go? Where is this, what are we doing? And everyone has responded with, well, let's wait and see. So in those 2 months, we are now at that the property owner has posted that he is going to be using, or they are going to be using local law enforcement to trespass and arrest anyone who is on their property, which of course is their legal right to do. But we also need to recognize that there are 50 to 70 people that have nowhere else to go, and we are going to scatter them across our community where they are going to go to other places that they are not supposed to go. They are going to lose their belongings. It is going to further exacerbate the amount of time they experience homelessness. And all the while, for over a decade, we have been asking, where can they go? And I am truly hoping that we can address these situations, because continuing to have these illegal encampments in our community is a health and safety issue, not only for those living in the encampments, but for our surrounding community. And we need to be proactive and address this in a holistic way and not in a punitive manner in which we seem to be addressing these situations.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you. Lucy Trejo, Trejo, Trejo? Lucy Trejo. Excuse me? Well, come, Grace, you can go. And she can follow you.
I think they all came up backwards. So my name is Grace McCaffrey. I am a resident of District 5 for almost 30 years. I'm here to talk about the effects of SB 1718, a bill targeted against undocumented immigrants that has already have a negative impact on our local economy, public health, and safety, though it does not take effect until July 1. Time and time again, undocumented immigrants are targeted in political campaigns. These incredibly hard workers are on the front lines of our food chain, our housing supply. And there's a lot that most people don't know about undocumented immigrants, including that many also become doctors, lawyers, military service members, and voters. I would like to give our community an opportunity to stand so you can see who they are. Familia? You may never see or notice these faces, but they are not nameless individuals or statistics. These are residents, family members, business owners, homeowners, taxpayers, supporters, and loved ones of our immigrant community that do not rate the value of an individual based on their immigration status. Thank you. The new state immigration law affects many workers in agricultural, hospitality, and construction industries. I forgot my picture. Can you get that for me? This annex was built by immigrant construction workers in 2006 after the highly publicized influx of Spanish-speaking laborers arrived after Hurricane Ivan. At the time, I worked for the BCC. I had an office adjacent to yours. I have pictures of these workers working on the entrance just outside these doors. I took these pictures because I was proud to see my Latino brothers creating this important building just as they're working on the large Baptist healthcare campus that many are enthusiastically waiting to see opened. Though most might take for granted the work they do, our familia are proudly leaving their handprints on our community every day. These people deserve respect, appreciation, protection, acknowledgement for their contributions, and they deserve representation. Some of the biggest concerns of SB 1718 are how it affects transportation, healthcare, and quality of life. Not luxury, but simply knowing that you can take your child to the doctor or ask for help from a deputy without fear of being separated from your family or deported. Immigrants often have to travel out of state to renew documents such as passports and attend immigration court.
Grace, will you kind of wrap it up, please?
It's very important. I had two other speakers that couldn't make it today. I had to cover the material.
I'll give you a few more seconds, please.
The law creates a risk in returning home even with an American licensed driver, as the law criminalizes anyone transporting them into the state. Immigration causes statuses are vast, can be very complicated. Most undocumented immigrants enter the country through proper channels, but at some point lose their status. One can easily lose their immigration status by simply missing an appointment. Most commonly in our area, individuals that are in immigration proceedings have to appear in court in New Orleans. If they're filing applications to attain status, they're scheduled for biometrics in New Orleans and interviews in Montgomery. If they miss a court date, they will have a deportation order. If they miss any biometric reviews, they lose any chance of gaining legal status. We're learning through Spanish language media that legislators in South and Central Florida seem to be backtracking on their own support of this bill and trying to downplay its impact. Perhaps because they have embassies in Miami and Orlando, they seem to be clueless about our interstate life in North and Northwest Florida. Following complaints from farmers and other business owners that are losing their workforce, these legislators are now publicly asking workers in Spanish, so you won't see it in mainstream media, to stay. Families have already left, though, and are still considering leaving in continued search for a better life.
Grace, and just in order of protocol, I have to ask you to close it down. And you know I empathize with you greatly, but will you just close it
May I have
down?
her time? May I have your time?
It's typical that, Grace, that we don't yield time.
I understand.
But I will not allow for you to yield time, but I will allow you for 10 seconds. If someone has a question, I'll ask. But let me just ask you a question, Grace, to extend your time. What is this impact on our local economy? And you can go for it and finish.
We have taxpayers that are not being represented. We have homeowners that are selling their houses. We have workers that are leaving their jobs for other states, and a community that has been growing for almost 20 years is falling apart.
And Chris, let me say this, and a little authority as a chairman, we can put things on committee of the whole. I certainly would like to find time to have you on a committee of the whole to talk about the local impact, because I empathize with you. Being in construction and being a guy that eats out, I certainly understand the plight. So certainly we can't solve it all in public forum, but I'll tell you, I will get with the administrator to get you on a committee of the whole to talk about the impact to our community on this bill. But go ahead and finish. I'll give you another 15 seconds.
I will request that as you hear the words repeal SB 1718, that you do everything that you can to make that happen.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for your fight. Lucy.
Good afternoon. I'm a recipient of DACA. I fought. I went
Can you
to
pull the mic closer to your mouth, please, Lucy?
Yes. My name is Lucy. I'm a recipient of DACA. I went to school here in North Carolina, to be exact. I have my documents. I'm a very lucky person to have documents and not to be driving around scared, to be pulled over and be sent back to Mexico where I have nobody. My mother and dad are passed away. My family and my brothers and sisters are here in the United States. So if I didn't have no documents, I would be going back to being exposed to the cartels, to being killed, to worst, to be harvest of my organs to be sold in the black market. I want you guys to please help us and my brothers and sisters to not be targeted like this, please. We help you guys grow, and there's a lot of people that don't have nobody to go back to like me. And I'm a very lucky person, like I say, and I just need you guys to help. I have taken a lot of people out of state because they're scared. My phone has been blowing up from people in tears asking me to please take them out because they have no documents, no license, no nothing to be moved. So please help us. Please put your hand in your heart. We are all humans and we need help. Thank you. You guys have a blessed rest of your day.
Thank you, Lucy. Sandra Smiley.
Good evening. Chandra Smiley, Community Health Northwest Florida. Just wanted to take a moment to let you know what SB 1718 is doing to some of our patients. And that is we've seen a spike in a no-show rate, folks not feeling comfortable coming in, concerned that their health information will be turned over to the government and that they'll be separated from their families. We have a women's care program. We have prenatal patients, and of recent, we've had some of our prenatal moms request that they be induced prior to July 1 because they're concerned about being separated from their child if they were to have the baby in a local hospital in Florida post the July 1 date. So I just want you to know from the FQHC standpoint, our mission and purpose stands at the forefront of what we do, and that is to take care of anybody who walks through our doors. And we are not under any mandate to provide any health information, that we abide by HIPAA, and that our patients' information is held in confidence and nothing would be released without their express consent. So thank you for listening and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Grace, one quick, can you come?
Hey, let me before.
Go ahead. Go.
Chandra.
Ms. Smiley? Commissioner Bender?
Sorry. Can you just repeat that just so everyone understands what you said? That you know, their concern is that their information will be released, and you do not release information, you don't turn it over to the state, anything like that. So I was just going to let you repeat it so that
We do not turn over any information to the state. We are under no mandate to provide any information, personal nor aggregate.
But
Sufficient?
Because of this law, though, that does have this requirement to, it does require healthcare facilities to report information about the people that they serve that are undocumented, which in itself creates a mistrust in the healthcare system, which is why we're having mothers wanting to be induced early and people not knowing what to do for their children.
Chandra, are you saying July 1st you'll have to report? Is that what I'm understanding?
The law goes into effect July 1.
I mean, is that point you're going to have to report? Is that
No,
what-
we are not under any mandate to report.
Okay.
Is what I wanted to make sure that the community and you understood, that we're not under any mandate to provide any information.
Even after July 1st?
Even after July 1st. Business as usual.
But they are a major provider of health care for our Spanish-speaking community. We've, over the years, built a lot of trust with the facility, but now just general fear in general has caused folks to stop being trusting in keeping their medical appointments.
So, Grace, what's the adverse effect? I mean, one, the adverse effect as it relates to, employment, health care, and number two, if you had a magic wand, how can this board help? I mean, because I would say, you know, I can't speak for my other four colleagues, but I certainly understand hurricanes, I understand construction, I understand healthcare, I understand the role that many of our friends that you represent play in this community. And so how can we help?
That was actually part of my presentation that I couldn't speak on, but.
Well, now I'm giving you that chance.
Thank you, thank you. Honestly, we need help speaking to our legislators. I know that you guys don't necessarily work with them every day, but you know who they are and you know how they operate, and you can speak on our behalf as a community. And in general, the use of immigration has been used in local campaigns. That needs to stop, because all it does is hurts people. It puts people like me in danger, and it creates big division in our community. So just like you guys can't create immigration policy, you can act like you do, just like other election campaigns have tried to do. It really puts a lot of people in a lot of jeopardy.
Well, thanks, Grace. And there's no doubt in America, black and brown communities have been ostracized and have certainly been taken advantage of. It's unfortunate that black and brown people don't have a lot of say, particularly if they got a Democrat behind their name in Tallahassee, but I will always be an advocate. And so to my brothers and sisters, my black and brown sisters, you'll always find a friendly voice and support here from me. All right, thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias.
No comprende, señorita. We stand adjourned. God, oh, sorry. We got 5 more speakers that have signed up. Please, hold. We have 5 more speakers. I'm sorry. Cinco Moss. There. All right, well, we have a few more speakers. So we have, so George Levy. Thanks, thanks, King. How do you say king in Spanish? I mean, El Jefe. L.A. Great. All right.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm George Levy. Have a couple comments, things to think about, logic, again. The Pensacola Beach parking garage, things to consider. There's been problems with concrete and seawater in the past and various other places. Is your design going to consider events such as a Surfside condo collapse or even the local county jail roof leak due to lack of proper maintenance? You want money to build a structure, possibly who's going to fund it and how you're going to fund maintaining it instead of letting it fall apart. With all the climate change, people talking about sea level rise, maybe you should build a beach parking garage at OF8 and sell beachfront property. Codes and enforcement. Why is a BCEG rate, Escambia County, a 4, which is like 65 to 75%? Why are other places in Florida rated a 1, which is like over 90%? This affects all of our insurances. One statement that was that it would be increase the cost of construction. How does that save you save when you have a pile of toothpicks and the insurance company is only going to give you half of what you thought it was worth? Is this penny wise and dollar foolish? I still have issues and concerns with Escambia County services and bureaucracy. It appears certain staff members made decisions and statements, but when asked why they don't respond. I question if Escambia County taxpayers are getting their money's worth or are there favors. They don't want to explain or still don't make sense. Is the county attorney aware of some of these questionable decisions? Has anyone been harmed and sued the county in the past?
Thanks, George. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Brenda Fitzgerald. And Michael Fitzgerald, you can come with her as well. Take your time.
42 years.
Okay, the short version.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brenda Fitzgerald. I live at 3 South 73rd Avenue. Congressman Kohler, or Councilman Kohler, has been very helpful for me in cleaning up my neighborhood. I come with illustrations. These fly strips are from my neighbor's backyard. We pulled 2 huge containers of garbage out of that place. I just want to live in a clean, sanitary environment, period. I want to know why my part of Pensacola doesn't look like the rest of Pensacola. And I also want to find out why our Navy and Marine Corps have not come out here and started helping people. There are a lot of resources at our disposal. We have old people in this area who cannot afford to fix their houses. They cannot afford to do a lot of the things that they need to do. And they just need a little help. They don't want any handouts. They just want clean, sanitary, and quiet places to live. I have made every single place I have lived a better place because I lived there. And I always left them better. I live here now. I've lived here almost 8 years. I'd like to stay. If it doesn't get too much crazier, I mean, my daddy was an officer. My husband was 30 years in the Navy. I do know what's out there. I do know what can be done. And I think we need to light a fire. I just want a clean place to live. That's all.
Amen. George? Michael, I'm sorry. Michael Fitzgerald.
She said it all.
Amen. That happens at my house all the time.
And then.
You used to live right next
Josh
door
Luther?
to my house. Mrs. McNeely says hello. I'll do it.
Hello, my name is Joshua Luther. I am a candidate for School Board District 5. The Word of God says, "A wise king winnows out the wicked, and he drives the threshing wheel over them." Proverbs 20:26. Some people believe that God's word is irrelevant in the realm of our enlightened politics. They will sooner listen to the quote-unquote experts than to their creator, the one who knows all things. This is foolishness. As the Word of God says, the fool has said in his heart, "There is no God." We understand that you are not the kings of Escambia, except for maybe the exception of Jeff Burgosh. But we also understand that you represent our county to the state, and there are steps that you can take to follow the word of God when he commands you to open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all the unfortunate, open your mouth, judge righteously, and defend the rights of the poor and needy. 6 million Jews were murdered in Nazi Germany because leaders like you, people like us, and churches like our churches did nothing. We have the duty before God to resist tyranny, oppression, and evil. 50 million image bearers of God, preborn boys and girls, have been murdered in our country because we have done nothing. As the Word of God commands us, we need to open our mouth. This is murder, and if you will not stand up for them, you will answer to God. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that will he also reap. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And I encourage you to read John Hope Franklin when over 100 African Americans were killed in the Middle Passage. Our next speaker will be Charles Luther.
Good evening. If you don't raise an objection, you don't have one. Well said statement, certainly not original with me. Men, women, citizens of Escambia County, many people are calling this Pride Month to celebrate debauchery and lies. I think we ought to really focus on what God says a family is and expose the lies of critical race theory, expose the lies of homosex, expose the lies of so-called transgenderism. We ought to really, just recalling the gentleman that was up here earlier, he said his grandchildren consume him. Well, you know, he didn't get those grandchildren through homosex. People say love is love. Well, if you want to say water is water and drink out of the toilet, you can say love is love. But to God, marriage is between a man and a woman, and it is for life. The Lord Jesus himself said, from the beginning God made them male and female. For this reason shall a man leave his father and his mother and cleave unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. There's so many lies going around in our country today. So many lies. Systemic racism is a huge lie. Thank God our previous principal was fired, that his contract was terminated, because he brought in this lie of systemic racism. It's
Thank you,
just
Charles.
not-
Your time is up.
It's not a
Can you
reality.
please close down? Thank you. Are we done? Maybe not systemic, but real. Thank you so much. We stand adjourned. We'll be ready to start in 10 minutes. Let's do it. Board of County Commissioners regular meeting, June 8th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. We're going to proceed to get started because we're running about 7 minutes behind. Please turn your cell phone to the vibrate, silence, or the off setting. The Board of County Commissioners allows any person to speak regarding the item on the agenda. Speakers limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairman. Speakers shall refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, protests, or other conduct which interferes with the orderly conduct of this meeting. Today, we're honored to have the invocation, Commissioner Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, it's my pleasure to ask Reverend Fred Zobel, retired Navy chaplain, if he might make his way to the front and deliver the invocation.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear God, we give you thanks for the beauty of this day and the beauty of life. As the Old Testament book Ecclesiastes reminds us, life is quite fleeting. So help us to stay mindful of the opportunities to serve one another. We ask your blessings tonight on these commissioners and their staffs who have committed themselves to public service. May their deliberations and the discussions by us all be respectful and tolerant, keeping in mind that we're all here to serve the greater good. As always, O God, we give thanks for humor and its use everywhere in government, even in our prayers. We give thanks for car payments because that means we probably had money to make those payments. We give thanks for birthdays because that means we're still around for another one. We give thanks for our loved ones who love us when we're not very lovable nor even likable. We give thanks for first responders and others who are charged with keeping us safe and peaceful, sometimes at risk to themselves. And last, oh God, we give thanks for your special creation that was started by Mrs. Ruth Wakefield in 1938. We give thanks especially tonight for chocolate chip cookies. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Berry, no one will ever outdo that. So will you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My dear friend, Commissioner May, that had the makings, a little bit of the makings of a Baptist preacher, not a Methodist pastor. I haven't heard a tremendous amount of humor over the years from our Methodist friends, but.
Well, I'm like Commissioner Bender. I hope God blessed him to bring some chocolate chip cookies, and maybe we'll get them. If not, some manna from above will come down, and we'll eat some cookies before it's over. Are there any items to be added to the agenda?
Nothing for me.
No, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Bender?
No, sir.
Bailey?
None.
None. Thank you so much. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as prepared.
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
Mr. Chairman, it
Yes.
looks like we're not quite, oh, never mind, we are all logged in just now. Thank you.
It's been a long time coming for me. Passes 5 in favor. Thank you so much. Commissioner's Forum, Commissioner Bagash.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank all the staff members who helped me organize a very successful town hall on Monday. I want to thank everyone's participation, including the citizens. There was about 100 people there. Had a lot of good information we were able to get out, and a lot of good questions from the citizens. And we had at least 7 questions from Teresa Blackwell, so I just want to make sure that's on the record, too. Most people had 1 question. She got 7, and we answered all of them for her. I also want to make sure that everyone in the public knows that next Friday, the county, after many, many years of working on this project that started with my predecessor, Wilson Robertson, we will be breaking ground on a 39-acre boat launch project, boat ramp, park, camping spaces on the lower Perdido Bay. It's going to be a fantastic amenity for all the citizens, particularly those that live on the west side. So we're going to do that at 11 o'clock this coming Friday. And so check the website for the details, but that's going to be a great, great amenity. And we've got the contract let, we've got all the permits, so we're ready to get going. So I appreciate staff organizing that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner McGosh. Commissioner
Thank you,
Calder.
Chairman. Yeah, I have a few things I want to just highlight, if you would give me a second.
Yes, sir.
First thing I'd like to share is, I know Commissioner Bender and I are on the Pensacola-Perdido Bay Estuary, but the other day they had a showing at WSRE over at Pensacola State College on the Humboldt oyster. It was about a lot more than just oysters. There's probably 250 to 300 people there, but they're showing it, and it's in alliance with Mississippi State and the Pensacola-Perdido Bay Estuary. You should watch it. It talks a lot about storms, about water, about our oyster bay, but it gives a good insight on what we're doing here inside Escambia County, so you know also the grant that we got and when it's moving forward. So very positive. Thank Grover for being involved with that, and Matt. I want to backtrack to Memorial Day. We didn't have much time to talk about that last time, but there was 2 different events. Obviously, since I'm a veteran, this meant a lot to me. The Veterans Memorial Park had a real nice thing down at the Veterans Memorial Park on Sunday, and then I'm surprised, Jeff, you didn't highlight this, but on Monday, Jeff introduced his brother that was introduced as the speaker out at Barrancas National Cemetery, and we had a really nice venue, and all those veterans and their groups that came out, I want to say thank you. No problem, Joe. NHP, I'm going to have a town hall probably in September with the CEO of the hospital and the VA to talk about some of the things that are happening. There's some positive news with some developments with the VA and the Navy hospital. It's good news, so more to follow on that, but that's exciting for me. And I met with Captain Coons last week to discuss some of that, so more to follow. Saturday, they had a March for Jesus. Most of the churches were from Chairman Mays in my district, but it was very nice. We started at the end of Palafox here, and we had different pastors from multiple churches that prayed. They prayed over everyone here in the county building, and nothing bad happened. I felt good about that. And then we moved over to the courthouse and City Hall, and that was real nice. Crew of Elcano, what a wonderful experience that was the other day with Captain Garcia and the crew that took care of us and the city as they got to tour that boat. If you got a chance to see that, what a wonderful experience, and it was awesome for me. I want to put a shout out to Senator Doug Broxson. I called him this week. As you know, I'm committed to Warrington Middle. It's going to charter. He's trying to get more appropriations for that, and that's a big win for us. I think, of course, I was fighting for Warrington. The horses left the barn on that, so we're going to have to get behind Charter USA, but we may get a lot of appropriations to help those kids over there, so I appreciate him fighting for that. Keith, since you're still here, I'm just going to highlight this real quick because I do think we need to talk about the medical examiner's office. I asked Wes to get it on shortly, so we need to hash that out and get it out in the open and just see where one falls on that. And then today, the change of command happened out at NETSI. It was very nice. And I think that's all I have to, I can't believe it. Lexington Terrace Park yesterday, all the people that showed up yesterday and the staff that helped us communicate our vision and what the folks wanted, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Colden, and obviously we're not school board members, but let me just tell you, the decrepit conditions that children in District 3, particularly children of color, have been going to school in for years, and it's horrible. And so, I mean, although I support what has happened to the children at Lincoln Park, what has happened to all these kids at CAYs and Warrington, and now we have a private entity, and we all think that it's publicly okay to support that. So let me publicly say that our children have been living in these horrific conditions, expecting them to learn for many years. And you know what? Because Warrington is the flavor of the month, everybody jumps on board. But these poor little black kids have been getting taken advantage of for years. So I appreciate what you say, but unfortunately, these kids in Oakwood Terrace, these kids in Pensacola Village, at O.J. Sims have been taken advantage of, and I hope that the same support that we're giving for this, because it's politically correct, that we give to these kids that don't have the political support that these others have. So thank you. Commissioner Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, I was going to let you introduce the new admiral, Zawerko.
Yeah.
If I,
You have an odd name, I thought.
I thought I'd get to say goodbye to Admiral Garvin. I was going to let you welcome Admiral Zawerko, but no. In all honesty, I've enjoyed getting to know Admiral Garvin and look forward to keeping in touch with him as he moves on and welcoming the Zawerko family. They have, you want to talk about a great family that is dedicated to the service to our country. I don't think you would, just a little bit I know about them, I don't think you would have to look any further than them. And, I think if I followed it correctly, essentially the people that were coming out of NETSI, he was in charge when they got there. So he was in charge of seeing the products of the school, and now he gets to lead it. So look forward to getting to know them the next few years. Of course, we enjoyed the Elcano visit. Always happy when they come and also be able to celebrate Fiesta celebration with us. And then finally, I would like to invite anyone that would like to come to the Escambia County Fire Rescue award ceremony on Saturday, June 17th at 10 a.m. It will be held at the Marcus Point Baptist Church on W Street. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to first send condolences and thoughts and prayers out to the family of Chuck Stanhope. His funeral was this past Friday. Chuck was a very young man that lost his life very suddenly about 2 weeks ago, and it's a tragic circumstance. Spent last Friday over at Little Flower Church over in District 2 for their services. But Chuck had a tremendous impact on thousands and thousands of young people through his work in the public school district, as well as his as well as at Catholic high school, but as well as thousands of athletes through 30 years of coaching, and really impacted a lot of young people. I know Mr. Chairman understands the impact that coaches can have on on young impressionable players, and through those formative years, when you've got those that put a positive impact on you, it sticks with you for many, many years. And it was nice to see some old teammates and some old friends, but not the kind of circumstances that you would like for that. But prayers and thoughts go out to Kathleen as well as his children, and he's got 2 young grandchildren now, and just a tragic circumstance. But I also want to highlight next Tuesday is going to be a neighborhood cleanup in Quintet. I want to thank Clara Long and Dawn Troche, my administrative aide, for working together to try to get that set up. I think that'll be a very good thing for that Quintet community. And also want to take just a moment and read an email that I received. And Commissioner May, this does relate to something that I know you've got in the pipeline, coming. Some improvements on the south portion of Kim Strand Road between Inslee and 9 Mile. This email relates to Kim Strand between 10 Mile and 9 Mile, project that was completed, pretty recently. But it's from a constituent, Glenda Ard. It seems that when something goes wrong, people are quick to complain. I feel when something is exceptional, it should be recognized and congratulated. This is the case for the road I live on. The company who had the contract to do the paving, sidewalks, et cetera, did an outstanding job. It's a pleasure to drive down the area now. I feel sorry for them who are working in the excessive rain. I noticed that they had to redo much of it over and over again after afternoon thunder showers, but they persevered and got the work done. If you haven't had a chance to see it, you would all be pleased. I wish I knew the name of the company that was responsible, but I don't. Sincerely, Glenda Ard. Wes, I just wanted to highlight that. It's I had one a couple of weeks ago, I think at a board meeting that I was able to read. We, I know the board is, at least for some numbers of years, very demanding on projects getting out the door and projects getting completed and those kind of things. And I think that sometimes I'll speak for myself, some of the times I have a tendency to be critical about, well, that's good, that one's done, but what about the ones that are still waiting out there? But I think it's nice when you get some unsolicited communication from constituents and citizens that are taxpayers, highlighting some projects that are done. And Commissioner May, I know you do ride that area, so I know you've seen it, and it's it won't be too long now. The south part of Kim Strand will look the same way, and I think that'll be a nice stretch there from 10 Mile to Inslee.
Thank you, Commissioner Berry. And oftentimes, we get the ability to share ideas and work on projects, but not too often do we have connectivity geographically. And Chemtrans brings our two districts together. And I certainly want to thank Wes and, Joy Blackman and Don Christian for, pushing the project, and I want to publicly thank Wes for figuring out, in the last couple of weeks how to do it and how not to do it with sidewalks and paving and figuring it out. Unfortunately, people have worked in this county for 30 or 40 years, and they still feel good about going to work when you have neighborhoods in Brownsville and you have neighborhoods in Inglewood that have not had sidewalks in the last 30 or 40 years. And so it's not just incumbent upon those of us that sit in this seat, but it's if you really have value in what you do, then you figure out how to do it and not do it. I mean, our neighborhoods still don't have sewer. We have neighborhoods that still don't have sidewalks, that don't have connectivity. And so it grieves my heart when those things are not implemented. But in the last couple weeks, Wes, I want to just publicly thank you, because I think you recognize how important drainage is, how important sidewalks, and how important paving is, even in poor neighborhoods, not just affluent neighborhoods. Everybody deserves for their children to be able to ride a bike and to be able to walk down and not be flooded. And so, Wes, I appreciate you paying attention, and I do appreciate your engineering department. As Stephen said, I've been very critical and very adamant about that has to happen under our watch, and so I certainly appreciate it. And to my colleagues, it was Commissioner Bender, Commissioner McGosh, it was great to recognize our Spanish naval officers here. I'm sure I didn't make all the events, but you guys are much more equipped to handle those situations than I am. But thank you for letting me be a small part of it. So whenever I can show, but certainly want to reach out, and we certainly, and I want to publicly say this because I've talked to some of my colleagues at the City Council, how supportive this board was for Juneteenth. We were not able to implement the funding that we wanted to, but I will be working with Stephen for next June to implement it. But we do think all of the committees who are working very hard to implement all the activities that are happening at Juneteenth, and you can go to City of Pensacola website to see those activities that are happening. And certainly District 3 in the county has been supportive, and we're going to continue to be supportive of those. And finally, congratulations to all of our graduates who graduated from Escambia County schools or Pensacola State or the University of West Florida. Job well done. And one of the things I'm proud of, I want to thank Claire Long and her staff. Certainly, we have almost 200 young people who are working within our county government or some of our partners. And to the directors and middle management people that don't think it's robbery to train someone to take your job, thank you. We know that it's challenging sometimes with young people to implement a culture that is foreign to them, but we do want to recognize all of the departments that are working with these young people. I think it's the first week. I think we signed up almost 400 children in our summer employment program. And when we first started, Steve, it was only 30 children, and we've signed up 40 children. To me, that's economic development. And Rodriguez, thank you guys for the free bus passes to make sure children get to work. I was impressed that some young people are riding the mass transit to get to their job because it's just that important to them. And we don't get articles written about that, and we don't get news things, but I think Molly's gonna do one. But it's important that people recognize that every young, particularly African-American kid, is not shooting, not killing, not gang-banging, but we have some that are gainfully employed that are doing great work here in our community, and hopefully they will live, work, and play here in Escambia County, and finally we hope they pay taxes. So Wes, thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the kind words. I have to brag on staff. We did an employee appreciation luncheon at Central Office Complex. And there's so many good employees that work out of there. And you talk about driving projects out, there's not a better group that can drive projects under Joy's leadership and Chris Phillips' leadership and Ron McCracken over there. I appreciate them so much. I've spent hours with Stephen Hall over the last month, and me and Steph have been kind of creative, and we've laid awake at night thinking of the budget. So Stephen, I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate your hard work of you and your group. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Animal Services. We got a phone call a couple of weeks ago that lady was gifting the county roughly 250 pigs. And we said, well, we don't want them.
And so where are you going to get them? And so long story short, we have an animal services group that works hard. They're short-staffed, understaffed. They loaded 608 pigs and moved them to a different area where they could thrive a little better. 608 on the turn of a dime. That's, we face a lot of those types of situations throughout the county. We just don't, they're not the big project, and they go unheard of sometimes, but every department has those initiatives that come up on you, and before you know it, you're in crisis mode almost. But John, I appreciate you and your group. What a fantastic job y'all did. And Mr. Chairman, that's it.
Thanks, Wes, and I'm so glad, John, that you moved them to District 5. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, Commissioner, and if you give me a second, Lumen. Wes, I appreciate you mentioning that. I do apologize, and I want to thank John Robinson as well as his a number of his animal control officers. And Wes said that they turned it around on a dime, and unfortunately, I know that's not the case. They had, I believe we had physical people there on site for 10 or 12 hours a day for a few days at least, if not 4 or 5 days, trying to get those out. I had some communication with, the citizen, and did not get an exact, maybe there was some confusion about the actual number of animals that were on the property. I've never made an effort to count swine on a parcel, and maybe it's extremely difficult. But they were willing to get involved and get out there when it was a certain number, and then the number ballooned greatly, and they stuck with it and took a few more days to get them out. And but it was about a 10-day project to kind of eradicate that issue. So thank you, Wes. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bender?
Yeah, I was going to say, John, none of your employees even squealed about having to do it, right? I mean, right, okay. But Lumen, the most questions I've had in the last week, though, is how people can get one of those keys that unlock all the boots from the parking lots downtown.
I'm sorry.
I said everyone's wanting to know how they can get one of those keys that unlocks all the parking boots.
Well, we did present something that you won't get booted if, so you don't have to worry about coming to our only free parking garage. Delarian, yeah. Send them to City Hall, but no. But Commissioner Ben, I will say that everything that I said in the presentation of the key to unlock the county was either your idea or Commissioner Begosh, and so I do appreciate it. And thank y'all for protecting me. I felt a little uncomfortable, but I made it out safe. Chair will entertain a motion for the adoption and ratification of proclamations.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second, please vote.
Hey, Lumen, if you heard how well my joke hit about the squealing, that's why I had you deliver it instead of me.
At least your children love me. That's all. I don't have a lot of love, but your children love me. Passes 5 in favor. Thank you so much. The Employee of the Month, Ms. Michelle Mobley, for her selection as Employee of the Month for June 2023. Mark's going to present.
I have the honor of supervising Michelle, and she's been an outstanding employee. Whereas Escambia County has established Employee of the Month program, recognizing one of the employees to represent various departments. Michelle is Administrative Claims Assistant in the Risk Management Division within the Human Resource Department, began her employment in the county on August 29th of 2000, and she has been selected as Employee of the Month for June 2023 for the standards of excellence that she has displayed in performance in her duties. Michelle adjusts claims, liability claims by initiating investigations, assigning risk analysts, determining liability, responding to claimants regarding the status of their request, prepares denial letters, coordinates repairs, rentals, processes claim payments, statements, preparing and obtaining releases, recovery funds that are due to the county, and many other tasks. Michelle has also taken ownership of the Certificates of Insurance program, making much needed changes and improvements to the workflow. The project has been streamlined and submissions and improved the understanding of certificates of insurance by all county departments. Whereas Michelle has demonstrated exceptional communication skills by displaying compassion and professionalism when denying claims and helping citizens understand why their claim cannot be fulfilled, and with obtaining necessary information from county departments to process these claims. Whereas Michelle is a model employee and is an outstanding representative of the Escambia County that continuously assists in improving the processes and effectiveness of the Risk Management Department. Now therefore be proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Escambia County, Florida congratulates Mrs. Michelle Mobley on her selection as Employee of the Month, June 2023. Also just wanted to say a word that Michelle has been a very positive employee. She has always had compassion and care with professionalism, extreme integrity. She's always been very detailed in her duties, completes tasks before their deadline is due. She has a level of detail and professionalism that unmatched to anyone. I'm very proud to be able to supervise Michelle and appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. Michelle? Michelle, would you like to say a few words?
Well, first of all, I want to just thank God for giving me the grace to come to work every day and do my job. I want to thank my supervisor, Mark, for thinking enough of me to put me in for the award. And I want to thank my coworkers in risk management and human resources for making coming to work enjoyable. And thank my husband because he's my biggest supporter. And thank you, commissioners.
Fantastic.
Hey, Stephen, if I can real quick. So Michelle and I actually had a working relationship as part of my duties before I became commissioner. So Michelle, congratulations. Glad to see you get this. Of course, I know from that side how hard you worked, and always a pleasure working with you then and still working with you now. So thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Commissioner May? We're adopting the proclamation congratulating Mount Zion, Northwest Florida, Alabama, Louisiana Primitive Baptist District Association on their 124th District Association meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Before Mr. Mobley and Michelle go, Commissioner Barry, you and I both were graduates of the University of West Florida, and Mr. Mobley just really did a lot for us, and Zebedee Nicholson and all those guys. And so I want to publicly thank you for what you did for me as a student at the University of West Florida. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Barry. Whereas Mount Zion, Northwest Florida, Alabama, Louisiana Primitive Baptist District Association was established in 1887, and the first anniversary was celebrated in 1878. Whereas Mount Zion, Northwest Florida, Alabama, Louisiana Primitive Baptist District Association provides worship services for all mankind and spreads the word of God by exhibiting his love and character and building strong family foundations for the people in our community. Whereas Mount Zion provides purpose, motivation, direction, and leadership for minority on social issues and promotes appreciation for the Word of God. Whereas since its inception, the organization has amassed 11 churches within the district and has seen hundreds of people come to Christ. Whereas Mount Zion, Northwest Florida, Alabama, Louisiana Primitive Baptist District Association is celebrating its 124th District Association meeting beginning Tuesday, June 20th through June 22nd with the theme, By Faith. Whereas the objective of the District Association meeting is to inspire community to identify various callings in their lives and create a spiritual and educational atmosphere to motivate members and associates to recognize the call of God in their lives. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Escambia County hereby recognize the positive impact that the Mount Zion, Northwest Florida, Alabama, Louisiana Primitive Baptist District Association has in our community and congratulate them on their 124th District Association meeting. Lumen May Chairman, Stephen Berry Vice Chairman, Jeff Bagash District 1, Mike Kohler District 2, Robert Bender District 4. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly can tell you're not a Baptist minister.
Commissioner May. Next is going to be adopting the proclamation declaring the week of June 19th through June 25 as Amateur Radio Week in Escambia County. And as they make their way forward, Commissioner May, they may even discuss an event in 2 weeks at Ashton Brossenham. We've got field league field day out there, and we've taken the kids out there a couple times the last couple years, and it's a nice time, and we appreciate y'all's partnership at Brossenham every year. It means a lot to have you out there.
We like it out there. And thank you, Commissioner Berry, for letting me present. I know that your children are engaged, and on last year when we presented, you talked about your interaction with them, so it is an honor to be able to present this to our friends in amateur radio. Whereas amateur radio operators are celebrating over a century of the miracle of their human voice broadcast over airways. Whereas radio has continued to provide a bridge between people, societies, and countries by creating friendships and sharing of ideas. Whereas amateur radio operators have also provided countless hours of community service in both emergencies and to other local organizations. Whereas the county also recognizes the services amateur radio people also provide to our emergency response organizations, including Escambia County Public Safety Department. Whereas the same individuals have further demonstrated their value in public assistance by providing free radio communication for local parades, bike-a-thons, walk-a-thons, fairs, and other charitable events. Whereas Escambia County recognizes and appreciates the diligence of these harms who also serve as weather spotters. Whereas the American Radio Relay is the National Association for Radio in the United States of America, and whereas the Amateur Radio Field Day exercise will take place on June 24th and June 25th, 2023, and is a 24-hour emergency preparedness activity and demonstration of radio amateurs' skills and readiness to provide self-supporting communication without further infrastructure being required. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Escambia County, Florida, hereby proclaims the week of June 20th through June 2023 as Amateur Radio Week in Escambia County, and recognizes the key role amateur radio plays in our community. Lumen May, Chairman; Stephen Berry, Vice Chairman; Jeff Bagash, District 1; Mike Kohler, District 2; Robert Bender, District 3. Congratulations to our friends at Amateur Radio.
I'd just like to thank you all for the relationship we have with the county. There's several hundred amateur radio operators in the county. The club has over 60, and we have a very tight relationship with the emergency management. We have an office there with communications. Hurricane season's coming up, and hopefully you won't have to need us as much as you have in the past. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we do have a press release that's going to go out to try to encourage folks to come out and check out what you do. And I suspect our friend at North Escambia will probably run something as you get a little bit closer, and try to get some more public out there. And you'll see if you hadn't been out there lately, there's going to be an improvement that's underway that will be finished when you do this next year. It's not finished currently, but it's a new structure that's going in place out there. So maybe you get to play in there next year a little bit.
Thank you, Commissioner Berry. Written communication. We do have a speaker. Will y'all entertain the speaker first? Melissa Jenkins.
Hello. I'm not even really sure if I'm supposed to speak. Terrence Davis, the code enforcement officer, told me to show up. We had requested a lien waiver on some daily fees for my brother.
Okay. Well, thank you. You just have a seat right there.
Okay.
And if we have any questions for you, you can sit in the front seat, and
Okay,
we'll
good.
do it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Bend?
Would you like for me to give a summary, or?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Ms. Jenkins, who you see here, is writing on behalf of her brother named Huey McDuffie, requesting relief from a code enforcement lien previously recorded against the property at 7720 Gregg Road. This is a District 4 property. McDuffie and his now deceased wife were the owners and violators named in the lien, and the property was a homesteaded property. Unfortunately, now McDuffie is suffering with dementia and is no longer occupying the property. When the code enforcement action began in 2021, the property was instead occupied at that time by his grandson and their friends, who apparently were responsible for the code enforcement violations. Under the typical board policy, the administrator would not have been able to provide relief because the owner violator named in the lien is the one asking for the relief. The total court costs were $235. There was a county abatement in the amount of $853. Administrative fines accumulated in the amount of $9,775 for a total lien of $10,863. The current assessed value of this property is $69,567. It's up to the board how it wishes to proceed.
Just one correction. My brother is still living in the property. He was living there the whole time. We had to have several people evicted through the unlawful detainer process. It took me months and months. I mean, first of all, I had to figure out what was wrong with him. I didn't know. I went over there and found the condition of the house, and saw something was wrong with him, started getting him medical care. It took forever, of course, with, trying to get tests run and all kind of stuff, and I didn't know what to do. I worked full-time. I had my own house. We got that all done. He was diagnosed with vascular dementia and put on medication. He now has improved a great deal. He is able to live alone in the house. We got everybody out. It got really pretty nasty at sometimes. They would not leave. It was horrible, just horrible. And it went on for a very long time. I did all I could do. I learned a lot through the process. I didn't know.
Thanks, Melissa.
Does that help any?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bender?
Melissa, I feel for you. I just, it's typically been the board's policy not to waive for the homesteaded property, and I'd see if there's any discussion from any of the other members on that.
Commissioner Bender, I think what we typically do is we won't waive the hard costs, but
We don't waive the hard cost, but even when it's is that correct?
Allison, what's the typical?
I'm not.
The policy indicates that the owner violator is not supposed to get relief if they're the one asking. But you, of course, can waive the policy. You have full discretion to handle this however you wish. Have we ever done it differently? I would say yes. We have on occasion handled cases in a few ways that are not necessarily strictly in line with that policy.
And due to the medical condition, what's the grand total that's owed?
Grand total is $10,863. Of that, $9,775 is related to daily fines that accrued.
Okay. So
There
the
was a
hard costs
county abatement was $853, and the court costs were $235.
Yeah, Commissioner Bender, if you'd find support for my vote on waiving the fines due to the medical condition and the fact that she had to come in and rescue the brother and collecting the abatement costs and the court costs.
Okay.
You'd find my
So,
support.
he's going to be living in the house. You're not selling the property or anything?
Okay. How long did it occur? I was trying to see where the.
So the case began in June of 2020, was complied in May of 22. So a little less than 2 years, the case was in violation.
They complied in May of 2022?
Yes, well, the county did, May of 2022. The county complied the violations.
They're in compliance now?
Yes.
How long have they been in compliance?
Certainly since they had this request, since the abatement took place in May of 22, we've had no other complaints against the property.
Well, if we want to say due to extenuating medical circumstances, I'd support that. Okay, perfect.
Well, we'll entertain a motion.
So I'd make it then just to pay the hard costs and the port costs.
Yeah.
And what's that number, Allison?
It's $235 for the court costs, $853 for the county abatement fees, and they would need to take advantage of this within the next 60 days through the clerk of the court's office, there may be some administrative fines or fees that are associated with that.
If that's your motion, I'll second.
That's the motion. Madam Clerk, is that clear?
So just for the record, the total cost we're asking is $1,080. Is that correct?
1,088.
All right, within 60 days. All right.
Second stands.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Passes 5 in favor. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Our next environmental code lien relief for property located at 1525 North 50th Avenue, District 2. We do have a speaker, Donna Waters.
Good evening. A pleasure to come and speak to y'all this afternoon on the behalf of my mother's house. All I can say is, you know, a lot of miscommunications with it. I didn't even know there was a fine on it or a penalty on it. I was at the university, when this went down, I was at the University of Florida receiving a double lung transplant, and I was down there for about 7 or 8 months. I've done everything I can to keep the property up. I hired a man to take care of the property while I was at the University of Florida. The notice was left on the front porch instead of the mailbox, which wasn't found until months later after the notice. And I had talked to a law enforcement officer that came out and said everything looked good. And I thought at that time this was concluded. So I have been keeping it up. You know, sometimes it goes a little longer than it should, but I think that this is, you know, an unfair type situation. But I've been a resident of this community. My great-grandfather was born in this county. My father, mother, and we've been a stable part of this community for a long time. I would appreciate it if you could look at all the facts and give me some kind of relief on this. I'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Madam Counsel.
Yes, this is a District 2 property that is 1525 North 50th Avenue. Mr. Waters was asking on behalf of his mother, requesting relief from the lien. Ms. Waters was the owner and violator, and the property was her legal homestead. She's currently in a nursing home. She's no longer in the property and was not, according to what we have in 2020 when this case began. He is addressing all of her affairs, but he has had a number of personal issues like he's referenced, including medical and marital and other issues, which, I mean, I can dive into that if the board has specific questions about it. I don't believe it's necessary, but significant issues that he was facing. And typically, like I said, your policy would not allow us to provide relief since the person named in the request for relief was the owner violator at the time of the violations. They were eventually abated by the owner, according to what our records show, in September of 2022. The total hard costs are just $235 due to the court costs. There was no county abatement since they took care of it themselves, but administrative fines in the amount of $14,500 did accrue to the property. The total lien is $14,735. The assessed value of the property, according to the property appraiser, is $84,929.
Madam Counsel, you said that his mom was the homestead. Is it she no longer?
It was her homestead at the time.
What is it current? How's it listed?
I'm not sure.
Is she still the she's still the owner?
Sorry.
Is your mom still the owner? The chairman's asking.
Where are we coming from? Yes, sir.
Does your mom still own the property?
Yes, sir.
And she still homesteads the property?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Waters.
Should.
Your mother's in a nursing home right now?
Yes, sir. She turned 96 last month.
Lieutenant Davis, where are we? Is the property in compliance now?
Property is in compliance.
Commissioner, your district.
Well, 96-year-old lady in a nursing home and a guy that had a double lung transplant, I'm going to have a hard time personally finding them $14,000. I think that we should do what we just
Well,
did.
we'll entertain a motion. Just make a
I'd like
motion.
to make a motion you'd have to pay the court costs, sir, for $235.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Passes 5 in favor. Thank you, Ms. Waters, and we hope you do well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm still here.
I appreciate it.
Did the clerk's office receive proof of publication?
Mr. Chairman, the clerk's office has received all proofs.
Move to waive the reading.
We have a motion.
Second.
Please vote. Passes 5 in favor. Thank you. Clerkman, comptroller's report.
Good evening, Commissioners. There's 4 items on the Clerk and Comptroller's report. The first one is the acceptance of the investment report for April 2023. The rates are above 4%, generating good returns for the county. The second is the acceptance of the TDT collection data for April 23 returns collected in May. This year-to-date collections is about on par with the same time last year. I know there was high traffic to the beach this last May, so it'll be interesting to see what the returns are. We'll see those after June 20th. The third is the acceptance of the joint workshop minutes prepared by the city clerk. And the fourth is acceptance of minutes and reports prepared by clerk to the board.
Move the clerk's report.
Second.
Please vote. Passes 5 in favor. Thank you. Growth Management Report, Director Jones.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, and Board members. The first public hearing case will be rezoning case Z 23-07 from non to conservation. The Planning Board made a recommendation for approval.
No, sir.
Chris,
Mr. Chairman.
Is this what, yes, go ahead.
Excuse me?
Go ahead, Robert.
I was going to say, Chris, is this what you guys are here for? Yes. Okay.
All right, who is here from the university? Just Chris, or you, just you? Do you mind coming forward?
This isn't going to be the folks who testified at the planning board, so.
Did he not give comments? Okay,
Chastity Hobbs.
okay, I see that.
So can he speak or can he not speak, Madam Counsel?
Well, technically, he shouldn't.
Okay, all right, Chris, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's fine, she couldn't be here. I just was here if you had any questions.
yeah. So, Madam Counsel, I do have some questions about this.
Can we waive to let Chris speak, or legally we can't?
It's
I mean-
it's just a risk that you take.
I'm not planning on voting on it. Allison, I'm not planning on voting on it tonight, so I do have a question, though. Chris, do you mind, I just have an intent for what the intent is, what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, basically, it's 565 plus or minus acres on the west side of campus, is to rezone this as conservation land that can be used for research, for the university, for academic type purposes, and also for recreation purposes for both the university and the community.
Okay. Okay, of the people that spoke, so I know Chastity, the other speakers that spoke at the planning board, Marcia Maple, Hector Castro, Jim Hunt, Tom Carter, are any of those others affiliated with the
They're all
university?
community members.
They're all community?
They're there to support it.
Okay. And I apologize, we do not have another meeting in June, but I would like to bring this back to July. I've gotten a number of questions from community members about what the impact of this is. Apparently, there's a lot of, and of those speakers, I do know one of them is someone that's a cyclist, but apparently the parcel is used pretty heavily by a large cyclist community, adults and youth that cycle on that parcel.
That's correct.
And there are some questions from those folks about what the impact of this is. So, Madam Counsel, I'd like to bring this back to July, and perhaps you could maybe communicate with general counsel at the university, just make sure that Chastity will be able to be here to speak on the university's behalf.
Absolutely.
So you want it brought back, you want it remanded back to the planning board or
No,
up to this board?
just back to us. I don't have any issue with it. I just want some clarification. I've gotten about a half dozen between phone calls and emails about what the impact of the rezoning is to some of the recreational uses, and I know you mentioned that that is the intent, but I did make a commitment that I would get that feedback on record about the continuing of those activities on the parcel.
So we already have an MOU in place with the local cyclist club that had been using the property previously.
Yeah.
So the impact, if anything, would be positive.
I understand, but you're not able to make those comments on the record tonight,
I can't.
so that's.
That's fine. So why don't we, what do we need, Madam Council? Can you just make a motion?
The board can make a motion to reschedule the public hearing to
Let's do
the
that,
July
sure.
18th board meeting.
Yeah, and that's all. And
But
Chris,
I have one, is it the West Florida Wheelman, Chris?
I'm sorry?
Who's the bicycling club?
It's PORC, Pensacola Off-Road Cyclists Club.
Okay.
I believe there are more entities than that actually utilize the parcel.
Well, I mean,
mid
there's
to large.
individuals, absolutely.
Yeah,
There's a
well,
lot of individuals.
I'm familiar with the two youth organizations that reached out. There are some young people that ride out there as well. They may not have formal MOUs with the university, but they're just wanting to ensure their continued ability to use it. And I don't have any issue with it. Obviously, I support the university greatly. This is right down the street from my house.
Right.
But I would like to get those comments on the record, and unfortunately, you're just not able to make those comments, so.
That's fine. Cheryl, anything? We have a
Bring
motion.
it back to just continue or reschedule the rezoning hearing to the to the July 18th meeting, please.
So we have a motion. Please vote. And Commissioner Berry, I've spent most of my life on that university campus. I was out there this weekend, so, Chris, we know how much we love Argo land.
That's right. Go Warriors.
Commissioner, if Chastity's not able to make that July, do you want to just amend the motion to say at, or at the next meeting that meets her schedule or something? I mean, just in case.
Let's just shoot for July.
She should be able to be here in July.
If I got.
I think we're giving her a heads up. If it's important to her, I know Chastity well enough. She'll be here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Passes 5 in favor. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Go Argos. Horace.
Yes, sir. The next item was the 545, but we're gonna drop this item at this time. Okay? The 545.
We're going to entertain a motion to drop the 545 public hearing for consideration of adoption.
Move to drop the 545.
Second.
Commissioner Bender, is it not showing up on your screen? I've
Yeah.
got 4 votes. I'm sorry. Okay, that's fine.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Bender. 546, Horace.
The next item is a large-scale map amendment. This is for the first of 2 public hearings from AG to AR.
No speakers.
Yes, transmittal hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the 546.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Passes 5 in favor. Thank you. Horace.
Yes, sir. Item number 4 is 547. This is for adoption of a small-scale map amendment from commercial to mixed-use urban, small-scale map amendment.
Thank you, Horace. We do have a speaker. Kelly Ann Schultz. Thanks, Kelly. Chair entertain a motion.
Commissioner Bender, is this in District 4?
It is. I'd move it then.
Second.
Have a motion second. Is there any discussion? If no discussion, please vote. Raise your hand if you're in favor. You got it? Okay. Well, thanks, Kelly. Passes 5-0.
The next item is the 548. This is to review and adopt the 5-year schedule of the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
We do have a speaker. Chris Kerr.
Well, you know, I couldn't bypass opportunity to speak about capital improvement plan. So, and I understand, I quote, the CIP serves as a blueprint for the future of the community. It's a dynamic tool, not to a static accounting document. So, but I was hoping to see an increase in funding for drainage projects listed, and I guess there needs to be more revenue increases for to get more projects funded. And since this is a public hearing, I do have a few comments and suggestions. You have $150,102 in your master drainage plan funds. I think you should increase your drainage impact fees. Then you would have more money for drainage projects. That's something that you've proposed several times, Commissioner Bergosh. You actually said it at your town hall meeting the other night. I think the other board members should get on board with that and consider impact fees. That's something that Santa Rosa County Board Commissioners is doing right now. Went to a budget workshop. They're trying to focus their capital improvement plans and their budgets on capital improvements. So they're trying to find other sources of revenue. So I think that's something that y'all should look at doing. I miss seeing all the Florida rebuild projects. There were some that were on there that y'all applied for grants. I guess y'all are still waiting on that. So seeing how this is not a static accounting document, I guess it doesn't matter. But I really liked how your bridge program has listed your funded needs as well as your funding available. I think you should do that with all your capital improvements. List out those things that are needed that you may not necessarily have funding for. And there's a reason why. A lot of grants that you apply for, specifically one I can name off as your Hazard Grant Mitigation Program through your LMS, you actually get points when they rank them if you have those certain projects listed in your comprehensive plan for your capital improvements. I also noted that on page 8, your LOST4 BCC.
Chris, can you go ahead and finish up? Your time's up.
All right. You have discretionary funds of $15 million. It didn't show the district allocations, but thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We have no more speakers.
I move the item, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I'd like to talk about this for just a second, if I can.
So, yeah, we have a motion and a second discussion.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I'm new to this board. I looked at this, was 524 pages. This is something, I agree with you, Chris. I didn't get through the whole thing. I don't know if everyone else did. I got up to about 300 pages, and, you know, I got 3 days ago, and so I was learning. I think we should have a little bit more discussion on these things, like a strategic plan. Exactly what you said. We have $15.7 million. It's not allocated. I brought that up with the county administrator. We need a little bit more nitty-gritty on what we're doing with our money. I'm obviously going to vote for this. It's a conceptual plan, but I'm asking the board that in the future that obviously we have a little bit more discussion with this, because I think it's obviously in my interest, and I think it's more transparency.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Please vote. Passes 5 in favor. Director Jones.
Yes, sir. For 549, we have a quasi-judicial public hearing, conditional use quasi-judicial public hearing to consider the permitting of a concrete crushing recycling process facility, proposed location 175 West Burgess Road.
Thank you, Director Jones. We have multiple speakers. So if you would entertain the speakers before discussion, if that's okay.
Mr. Chairman, as a quasi-judicial hearing, if you would please make sure to allow the speakers reasonable time to make their presentations.
Okay. Tina Julian.
That was Lisa Julian, but I'm going to reserve my comments to the end.
I'm sorry, that's what they wrote. You're going to do what?
I'm going to reserve my comments till the end.
You'll be called to speak now, ma'am, or you won't be able to speak. I'm sorry. Our next speaker will be Lisa Minshew. Oh, you want to speak?
I'm going to speak.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. May, I listened to things you had talked about as far as people donating, kids that need help, people getting help in this community. And you obviously don't know Jeff Godwin, this whole board. He has done more for kids, but he's been very humble and quiet about who he is. He has paid for people to go to rehab. He's paid for kids to go to camp. He's helped people within the church. He's donated. And to not help with this situation and to look at all that he's done is definitely a detriment. It's a detriment to this entire community in every district. He didn't look at color. He didn't look at age, race. Where there was a need, he helped. But he's too humble to step up and say that. And I just want you to know that.
Thank you, Ms. Julian, and I do know Mr. Godwin very well. Lisa Minshew.
We have another attorney here who's going to be handling it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. DeWitt Clark, counsel for Delta Recycling. Thank you all for taking the time tonight. I know this is quasi-judicial, so I don't know, are we just doing open forum for speaking, or are we going to?
If you want to reserve any comment you want as counsel representing them, I'll give you your time.
That was where I was headed.
Yeah.
If I could wait till the
Yeah,
end.
if you want to wait.
Yes, sir.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. DeWitt Clark? Oh, I'm sorry, DeWitt. I'm sorry, DeWitt. Jeff Godwin? Go ahead.
This was my client. So what I'm asking, I guess, is the process.
So,
on
Jeff,
this.
you don't want to speak?
If our team here, so I have a team of witnesses here. If we could wait until after this presentation of whoever else it is, so I'd have an opportunity to cross-examine or however it is y'all are going to proceed with this.
I don't think you're
my
going to be able to
question is your process.
My recommendation would be to have the applicant present his case with his speakers, and then if
Okay.
there are any speakers outside of the ones that you wish to call, we can then take those. And then if you have questions for your staff, there is a staff recommendation that's in your backup.
Right.
That's what
And that's where I was headed,
would
was the
recommend.
process. If there was just.
So I have no idea, madam. I have no idea who's your speakers or who, what. I mean, so.
Yes, sir. I have Mr. Godwin, Mr. McGuire, Mr. Long. Those are my
So-
speakers. So anybody else on that list, I
So
guess.
can you repeat that?
Yes, sir. I have Mr. Godwin, Mr. McGuire, and Mr. Long.
And Mr. Long?
Yes, sir.
Jerry McGuire. Mike. Yeah, I know them all. Let's go. All right, that's fine.
Yes, sir. Okay. So would you like me to present now? Or do
Yes.
you want the?
Go ahead. You can go ahead
Okay,
and
yes,
present.
sir. Thank you. This has been before the board twice now. At the last meeting, it was tabled for 60 days with the recommendation that my client reach out to their neighbors who we've all heard from. We've had a town hall since then. We had a list of 12 neighbors to reach out to. We have done that. There was a Miss Amy Hines, who was a concerned neighbor. We've spoken to Miss Hines. Miss Hines is here to speak tonight. She's now in support of the project. So we've given the concerned neighbors the information they've asked. A few points that I'd like to fill in from the last meeting. Mr. Godwin didn't choose to be in this situation. Mr. Godwin was eminent domain by the state at a site a stone throw away from this. So we understand this, we're asking for a conditional use, but we didn't choose to be here. We didn't pick this spot and being hard-headed about it. We operated in the previous site for 7.5 years. We've actually, when you look at the prior site, it was 4.5 acres. We're actually 9 acres now, so we've doubled the size. We are 750 feet from any residential homes. Last time, we were only 100 feet. So we've actually, if anything, improved the site compared to the last one. And I'd like to, at this point, the staff findings from the April 6th was a recommendation. I believe this time, when you look at staff findings, it's a denial. The only change in those two, which I think is important to note, is the proximity to residential. I believe we've cured that. We've met with these neighbors. We've informed them. And we feel that we've done our part as far as being a good neighbor to them, what we intend to do with the site. So we asked for approval for this. And I'd asked Mr. McGuire if I could present him. And maybe he can go over some of the, I'm sorry, Mr. Long. Maybe he can go over some of the suppression. I know the dust particles was a question we had. I'd like to go over that system we're going to put in place. So I'd like to present Mr. Long for you.
So in the order that we're going to go, Mr. Long, then Mr. McGuire, and those will be your two speakers.
Yes, yes, sir. That'll be it.
Great. Thanks.
I was responsible for testing out on the site. As mentioned, this site is twice the size of the old site, and the footprint of the crushing operation is the same. So there's significantly more buffer in this area than in the previous site. There's more trees. There's a lot more grass. The new site has an extensive sprinkler system and a large buffer between where the crushing and Burgess Road, which will be watered constantly, the road, but on either side of the road is grass, where before the old site was pretty much I think it was old Sykes yard, and it was just an old concrete yard before Delta moved in. So it was really just a big dust bowl to start off with. To improve the operation of the crusher, they're pouring a concrete pad to crush on the pad. That will keep dust down that's created below the machine, which is very important. I went out yesterday and we did a 1-hour test, and I set up the PM 2.5 test about 65 yards from Burgess Road, because if I get too close to the road, the traffic will cause the meter to go out of whack. So I was closer to the operation than the houses than I would normally set up, but I didn't want the road messed up. But we measured 25 micrograms per meter cubed, where the county limits 35 in an hour. And the new order for this site says that they have to stop crushing if the wind approaches 25 miles per hour. So that keeps the dust controlled in the site. The equipment is all sprinkled. There's 5 sets of sprinklers on the crusher. With the tree buffer that they're not taking down, it's well maintained. It's a good setup compared to the other setup.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Jerry? You had a question? Someone had a question for? No, you're good. If you just stay there in case we have questions in our discussion.
For the record, I would just like you to state for your qualifications, if you don't mind.
I'm a professional engineer in the state of Florida. I do a lot of environmental work with air testing.
Thanks, Mike.
Sir, at this time, I think we're going to reserve Mr. McGuire for any type of rebuttal evidence we need from the witnesses or from the county. Thank you.
Jeff, did you want to speak now?
I will in a few minutes.
Chase Cobb?
No. We reserve his time for me later.
Okay. Randall Chavers?
Hey, I'm a businessman. I buy a lot of stuff from him. I got extensive experience in these crushers. Even his old crushing system was far, far better than the ones I'm experienced with. This is not 1, not 2. This is 10 at least that I'm experienced with. I know what his system is. I've been to many counties in Alabama, right in this district, and all around. He has the best, the quietest, and actually it's smaller than most. And so I don't see any problem going forward with dust and those matters.
Thanks, Mr. Chavers. Amy Hines?
I'm back. Amy Hines, number 8 East Pinestead Road. I did voice my concern, my lack of knowledge last meeting. I want to thank Horace Jones and Rachel Whitmire for helping me coordinate a meeting with Jeff Godwin, who has been most hospitable to myself, my neighbors, giving me a full tour, knowledge, explanation. I'm so much more comfortable now representing for my 12 neighbors who could not be here tonight. The opportunity for him to have a good business and have it not impact us like I was concerned about. He's also urged me to stay involved. I don't need to be a watchdog. I'm not qualified for that. But we're going to have a continued relationship for just friendship and watch him thrive. And
Thanks, Amy.
very much.
Appreciate you being here. Susan Woodson?
I'm Sue Woodson, and I'm Amy's neighbor, and we went together to look at the site, and we had a lot of questions, and he answered all our questions, and we were prepared to not agree with that being there. And when we left, it's like, well, this is fine. It's less harmful. The dust was taken care of. The noise was less. The barrier was bigger. And it just seemed like fine. And there's other things in the area that are industrial too, and they're all getting along, so. Good.
Thanks, Susan. I appreciate you. James Holland? Excuse me?
My point was already covered.
Thanks, James. Carl Berger?
My point was covered.
Rick Fasson?
Yes, sir. I'm a general contractor here in Pensacola. A lot of you know me. And Classic Homes is our company. And we've been in and out of that pit a number of times. The older pit was a little hard to get in and out of, but this one right here is in a real good location. And I appreciate the cleanliness it takes to get in and out of there with a truck. And we've never experienced any problem with the dust or anything created from this site. And so we wholeheartedly back the approval to give him this permit to have it to remain there.
Thanks, Rick. Next speaker, Robert Hurst.
Good evening. I'm here in support of Jeff Godwin, and I've known Jeff for probably 20 years, and I've watched this battle he's had to fight to get this approval. As far as I'm concerned, I've watched him go above and beyond trying to make sure everything worked properly with this application. I know he's met with people, he's met with all of his neighbors. He has spent way more money on making sure this is a proper, efficient site. You know, the biggest thing is he's in the recycling business, and what he's doing is taking these products that are going to fill our landfills, and he's turning them back into products that people are able to use. You know, he's got a good business. He's a good businessman. He is a member of our community, and all the people that work with him, they all benefit from this just like we all do. So I just want to support this. I hope that you will all see that this is something he has had to fight hard for, and I believe he deserves to have this approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Is there anybody else here that wanted to sign up, come forward? You can come and just state your name and then just go to the back and sign up after you speak. Just go ahead and speak, and after you finish, you can, someone will help you fill out the paperwork.
My name is Darrell Stewart. I live at 7301 Maxim Street, which is down at the corner of Burgess and Maxim, right down the street from the facility. There was a couple points that were brought up. First of all, I want to state that I have spoken to Mr. Godwin, have nothing against him, nothing against the business that he wants to install. The problem is that there have been a couple inconsistencies that I wanted to bring out. One of them, there was only six people from the neighborhood at that town hall meeting to speak. Mr. Clark mentioned that there was 12. There was only 6 of us there. Number 2, the list of persons that Mr. Godwin was able to contact. At the town hall meeting, he showed a big circle that he was trying to contact all the people in that circle. He said he wasn't able to contact most of them because most of them were renters, and he wasn't able to find out who the owners of the property was. There is a phone number in Escambia County where you can call and find out whoever owns whatever piece of property you're inquiring about. So not being able to contact the owners, in my opinion, is not a valid excuse. And that's all I have to say. My name is Darrell Stewart again, and do I need to swear in, or what do I need to do?
No, and Darrell, let me respond to you because you're a constituent and you deserve that. The lack of response from citizens is not necessarily the applicant's responsibility, because one thing that I've done, I've probably been most vocal against pits and concrete crushing, but from our staff, we did send out mailers on multiple times. And so people were informed. They have a choice to show up or not and make their voices heard. But everybody within that geographical area was contacted by our staff. Is that correct, Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir. Cards was sent, yes, sir, on both occasions. At the first meeting on May the 18th, and also for the town hall meeting that you requested 60 days after, yes. Cards was sent, yes.
And so, Darrell, I just want to record, because you and I met multiple times. I remember coming out on your street many years ago. And typically, the rule is not to have town hall meetings, but because of my concern for citizens, I require that in our district. And so people were contacted on multiple occasions to be there.
May I respond to that?
Absolutely, you can.
Just because you get a blue card in the mail, if you are not the owner of that property, your concern about that blue card is very little, because it doesn't concern you as a renter. And Mr. Godwin himself stated that most of the people that he had contacted were renters, and that they had no skin in the game.
Well, absolutely, and not to have a debate, they have skin in the game if they live in the neighborhood, because they reside there. Unfortunately, most owners don't reside there. But certainly, so I respect what you're saying, but I just wanted, for the record, I don't want it to be misconstrued that people were not contacted, because they were.
Understood.
I appreciate all.
One final thing. At the last, this situation, the first time we had this meeting, Mr. Godwin was told that it was felt that he needed to contact more people in the neighborhood in order to let them know what was going on. Based on the people who showed up at the town hall and the number of people they said they've talked to, I do not think that has been accomplished.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Mr. Stewart a question?
Yes.
I appreciate you coming down and expressing you're the first person that has shown opposition, but you didn't say why you're opposed to it. Why are you opposed to the?
There is a large community of homeowners right across the street from where Mr. Godwin is. They have seen clouds of dust in the past since they have been there. There is a church just to the west of his entrance that has a playground on it that I have observed children playing on. You know, most of the time it is on Sundays, and I understand that they will not be operating on a weekend. But I myself have 7 grandkids that visit me from time to time, and I'm right down at the end of the street. Now, if I am a homeowner, I have a neighbor here that has kids. With the renters, there are not many kids in that neighborhood, and they should be our primary concern. I understand about how they want to abate the dust, and some of those have very good possibilities. But there's also this possibility of a wind coming up, and that dust gets spread all over the place, irregardless of what they do.
Have you been to the site? I haven't. Have you?
No, I have not been to the site.
Okay.
Mr. Godwin invited me to go. I did not feel the need to go because I have been in the industrial field ever since I have retired from the Navy 29 years ago. So I kind of aware of what goes on in a facility like that. I worked at Florida Drum as the maintenance supervisor for 9 years. And if you have any type of possibility of airborne products, a concrete crushing facility runs at my top of the list. Thank you.
Thanks, Darrell.
My name is Pat Green, and I live at 182 West Burgess Road. I was here at the first meeting. I was at the townhouse meeting. I'm back today. We live directly across from where Delta's coming in. I just heard him say that they talked to neighbors. It's 4 houses on the property, owned houses. He has not reached out to any of us to have a talk. We have issues because there's a paint and body shop right beside him, fumes coming. There's a Swift Lumber Company behind us, dust comes, and we have a problem with him because y'all told him not to work until today. Trucks has been going in and out with rocks on them. I'm home all the time and I see with these eyes what's going on. So no, we don't need any more dust or rocks dropped on the road. And I hope that y'all take into consideration, if he went house to house, he didn't come to 4 houses right across the street from him.
What's your geographical location? How many feet are you from there, Ms. Green?
182 West Burgess Road. He's at 175. We sat directly in front of him.
Cars, what was our mailer?
The mailer was a 2,500 feet radius.
So she's within 2,500
Oh,
feet.
definitely.
Yes.
So
we're
did
right
you,
across the road.
so did you not receive any communication from our office? Any mailers, Ms.
Oh,
Green?
yes. I was here at the first. I was here at the townhouse, which
Yes,
six
ma'am.
6 of us came, and I'm here today.
Okay, I thought you said you didn't have any
No,
communication.
no.
But you were communicating with?
Yes, I got your little blue card.
Okay, all right. Okay. If you've not signed in, if you did speak, I do need you to go sign in. Are we consistent? Are we good with that, Madam Council? Go ahead, ma'am.
Jennifer Williams, I live on Owen Street, on the flip side of Maxim. 2 cul-de-sacs meet there. You know, I have just researched and researched till I can't stand it anymore. There are no post-studies done on these type of facilities. The facility where it was located before was a pipe company. I mean, for years and years and years, it was a cement company. The land was already used for that. It was already there for that. And this land, there is no way of knowing what the impact on this land it's going to do. The pH rises sky high with this stuff. The silica dust. You can talk to the Sussex City Commission Board. You can talk to Sarasota and see how they have dealt with this and the troubles that they're experiencing from this. People are landing in the hospital from the dust and the compact. The noise pollution. My question would be, where is all the water from these sprinklers going to go? Certainly not in the holding ponds that are along the area there. And if the noise was so loud from the traffic compact, that ought to tell you how much traffic is on that 2-lane road that everybody in this county has always used and always will use as long as it's there. I was called the last time that we were in this building, I was called on the fact that I was bringing up things that were already an issue. Well, it was important to bring those things up because now we're going to further compact those issues. I've been there since the 70s, didn't intend on going anywhere. Several properties have already sold around the location since this has happened. And I just know that from what I read with the county, there are some things that have to be proved before variations can come across. There are things that have to be proved beyond a shadow of a doubt for the welfare of our citizens. Thank you.
That's going to be all of our speakers except for council at this point, Madam Council?
As far as I know, unless you have questions for your staff.
Yeah, all right. Before you speak, council, Chip.
can we talk about the suppression and the retaining of particles on the geographic area and the distance between that and residential homes, if you've looked into it? Or have you not, if you hadn't looked into it? I mean, we can wait and have you look into it, but I don't know if you've gotten an environmental position on it yet.
Well, Commissioner, we do know that this site is better than the previous site, that there is 750 feet to the nearest residence, whereas before it was, I think, 150 feet. So we do know that that buffering distance is better. We do have a plan, a dust monitoring and suppression plan signed and sealed by Jerry McGuire. We do have an operations plan signed and sealed by the engineer, Jerry McGuire. But there is no getting around the fact that PM 2.5, this very fine particulate matter, can travel literally miles. So there is no distance in which PM 2.5 cannot travel. We have PM 2.5 coming from Africa, dust from Africa coming to the United States all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. So there is no 100% guarantee that particulate matter is not going to leave this site. Tim Day and I have been discussing some maybe additional recommendations that the board might want to consider. If the board wanted to, maybe issue a trial permit for a short period of time so we could do some more monitoring at this site, we could certainly do that. Some of the recommendations that Tim and I talked about were an air quality monitoring system on site. I think Mr. Long could probably install that with an alarm, so every time there was an exceedance of that PM 2.5, that alarm would go off. There's also the possibility of enhancing that sprinkler system, because that is one of the best management practices for suppressing this fine particulate dust, is making sure that there's plenty of water to make that go into the stormwater retention areas. So there may be some additional requirements that the board might want to consider that staff could certainly work with the engineers to discuss if the board wanted to try some sort of trial period.
Thank you, Chip. You may want to just sit at the front here because we may have questions. Council Clark.
Yes, sir, and I'm sorry, I missed Chip's last name. What was?
Kirshenfield.
Hirschfield. I'd like to ask him a few questions, if I may, on a cross-exam type situation. Is that, I'm sorry, Allison was busy.
I don't know.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned that this particulate matter can fly however far. You mentioned it's from Africa. Now, what you failed to mention, though, is there a requirement that the facility shut down if winds are a certain mile an hour?
I know that is in the plan, the operation plan that Mr. McGuire submitted, that when the wind is above 25 miles an hour, that the plant was shut down, yes.
Thank you. And you mentioned, well, let's see. So you mentioned an alarm being installed. Is that a practice that's followed at other facilities like this?
There certainly are alarm systems for air quality monitoring systems in buildings. I don't know if there is an example of one being installed at a concrete crushing facility, but there certainly are alarms for hydrogen sulfide and other gases in buildings, sure, and carbon monoxide.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Commissioner Bender?
Is that all for the speaker? I'm going to have some questions.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean,
Okay.
they want, Jerry, you want to speak?
Jerry McGuire, JMA Engineering Services, Pace, Florida. I'm the engineer of record. Now, took the project through the process with staff. We met every requirement, engineering, stormwater, you name it, planning, buffering, that was required. So there's no questions about that and what's, we're going to be doing. As far as the stormwater and the runoff from the irrigation system, that's a very minor amount compared to what the stormwater system that we have designed for, okay? We've designed a pond that'll handle a hurricane, 13 or 14 inches of rain coming through and stay in that pond. We put in swells to get water runoff from the piles and the machines into that system. Another thing about a system like that, you have to maintain it. Jeff does that. He's got the equipment to do that and the know-how to do that. So from a stormwater standpoint, from the irrigation, which is presently going in, we've pretty much covered what we need to do. And like I say, we met all the county code requirements, and that's why we stand here tonight.
Thanks, Jerry. Commissioner Bender?
Thank you. I know it's been mentioned that you're doubling the acres of the site. Does this mean that the capacity will be doubled, or are you going to use some of that acreage as an additional buffer, et cetera, things like that?
No, sir, the capacity remains the same as the prior site.
Any more questions, Commissioner Bender?
No, sir.
Thank you. And so, I don't mind facing things popular, unpopular, head on. And first, let me say, I think somebody said, I don't know Mr. Godwin. I do know him and have a great deal of respect for him. It's not the first time that we've had issues as it relates to the type of business that he does, but I certainly respect it in many ways. And actually, he's complied to the requests that, were important to me that we had in a public meeting. Whether it ends up in litigation or doesn't end up in litigation, I do have a responsibility to represent the citizens that elect me to what they want their neighborhood to look like. If it's not zoned for that at that time, if there's a change of conditions, I have to listen to the citizens, and was very clear and open with Jeff about that since the beginning. The problem tonight is that you have a neighborhood that's split. You have a neighborhood that's divided on whether or not they want this, not even the safety issue. I mean, and so when you talk about air quality, dust particles, silica in the air, those are all things that I've been adamant about, being on this dais. And unfortunately, those positions were because of bad actors, people who utilized landfills, concrete crushing for greed, and didn't think about the residents and the neighbors. There's a thin line between environmental justice and economic development. You have to have economic development, you have to have environmental safety. I think in any good negotiation, there's compromise, but there's never a compromise as it relates to someone's health. I've heard from the residents tonight. We've done everything that we could do to have a public forum to get people to express themselves. It's divided. There are issues as it relates, as Ms. Green said, in terms of other industries that's in that neighborhood that could be deemed or judged unacceptable by some, but they met the criteria to exist. So for me tonight, it really puts me in an awkward position tonight as where I am, but I
do take the responsibility if I have the authority to make decisions and make those in the best way that I know with the knowledge that I have. And one thing that I do, I'll be consistent in the decisions that I make. And I'm not going to do for one and not do for others. So for me tonight, I do believe that there is opportunity for better communications. I've heard from, quite frankly, 3 or 4 people who said, you know what, once we got better knowledge, we support it. I've heard from 2 people that Jennifer and Pat adamantly denied. I've heard from one guy, that Darrell, who said, I don't really have anything against it. Maybe I don't like it because of my past experiences. I hear from staff in terms of, enhancing sprinkler systems, enhancing quality of air, putting in other protocols to make sure that, there are no dangers, because quite frankly, the number one priority is public safety. So I certainly take offense to anyone who would say that there's anything personal, because quite frankly, I have a lot of friends out here. I'm a general contractor. I make my living by construction and rocks and concrete. So I certainly understand that. So for tonight, for me, I don't know if anyone was existing or what. I'm uncomfortable tonight denying this, and I'm uncomfortable approving this. Now, my colleagues have the ability to do what they so choose. I think that Mr. Godwin has done a great effort in education. I think there's a little more education that can be done in gaining a little clear understanding for those citizens or who concerned. And, I understand Ms. Pat saying that he didn't reach out to her. I can say that we did reach out. I think that if people could visit the site and see the site and know that their grandchildren are safe, that may be a better report. I do understand. I know what's happened in Wedgewood. I know what's happened in Ebenwood. I know what the scrap yards have done. I know when people are out barbecuing and particles are falling on their meat. I know that how trucks ran through a residential neighborhood. And so I think that there's some more work on staff side to citizens on traffic, on what trucks go through, how they enter, how they don't enter, and to make sure that people clearly understand that before we make a final decision. So, Madam Council, with that, Robert, did you have something?
I did. I had a question for staff.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, because it was something that I was discussing with the attorney, but Horace, this is a 1-year permit, correct?
Yes, sir. What's the question?
It's a 1-year permit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
it has to.
So we got a couple
renewed.
things here. We've got the, it'd be a conditional use, which would stick with the property.
Yes, sir,
But
will.
the permit to operate would be for 1 year.
Yes, sir. It has to be renewed. There are inspections. Inspections can happen weekly. They can happen daily. Also, too, there are unscheduled inspections like we do other facilities. If there are issues, we can definitely get code enforcement out there immediately. Tim and Chips and his team, department, they do monitor those facilities very heavily. So I want to say there are protocols in place by staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so, Horace, no disrespect to you, but
Yes, sir.
Candidly, Chips, them should have been, it's just not a zoning issue. It's not a zoning
Yes, sir.
issue.
Yes, sir.
It's a human perception issue where that our environmental scientists should have been and should be at the table for clarification to stake their license and stake for the safety of the citizens. And so a part of that conversation should be Chips, should be Human Services. They should be at that conversation. And so, Robert, if you have a motion, you're welcome to make it. I am going to make a motion, and it can pass or it can fail. I'm not going to make a motion to deny or approve. I am going to make a motion that those citizens who express interest, our environmental science, that we take, and I hate to do this to the petitioner, Jeff, because he's done everything that he could do. And I want to be clear, Mr. Stewart, I want to be clear, Ms. Green, in terms of where I'm in a public meeting that's there, that there's no more excuses of people saying they didn't know. I mean, because we brought this issue before this board on multiple occasions, that we take, 30 days to have that educational process with them and bring this issue back for a final vote.
Mr. Chairman, if that's what you're asking for, I'll help you. I do have a question before we dispose of it, or discuss it and dispose of the issue one way or another. Madam Councilman, we have a lot of ability as we would issue this, a lot of latitude. Allison? I mean, as far as time frame, Robert just asked, it's a 1-year permit. I mean, could we grant a 6-month permit? I mean, we have a lot of latitude in that regard.
The recycling permits are 1-year permits. You could ask that there be a status checkup at 180 days, or, that they come back before the board in 180 days or something
I just
like
say that. I mean, one of the things Lumen was talking about earlier was that there was some discussion with staff about, about trying to putting, having, I think you might have used the word trial. I don't know if trial often relates to a time period. So I didn't know if that would give us some latitude as far as the time period, or if the trial issue was related to some other. I know there was some other, some other activities that that we would want on the property to have staff, do on the property. And Lumen, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, it's, like I said, if that's what you're asking for, if that's what you're requesting of me, I'll help you. So I'm, happy to do that. On some level, it also, I mean, there also ends up being the fact that if the parcel didn't need anything, then we wouldn't be having to have the discussion. Right. If there was nothing needed on the parcel. So, in this instance, there is something needed. There is an action that's needed by the board. So that's, so that's something that, if the property didn't need that, then it wouldn't be having to come here for that. So if what you're asking is to reschedule it to the 18th and say that's July 18th, that's absolutely it. If that was your motion, I'll second that motion, and hopefully we can dispose of this relatively quickly.
And Steve, I'd like to dispose of it. Excuse me?
I'm sorry, as the chairman, he shouldn't be making the motion.
I thought we had established
But
that was okay.
I'll pass the gavel.
He can second a motion, but he can't make.
Well, no, I'll pass the gavel. I'm not going to run from. You saying I can't pass the gavel and make a motion?
Yes, you can do
Okay.
that.
All
Well,
right, you
I'll pass the gavel.
You don't have to. I already have it. You gave it to me earlier.
Yeah, I gave it to him earlier, yeah.
So.
Which I don't
anyway,
mind anybody else
I can't-
making it,
so
but
I
I'm
can't
not gonna.
I can't second it. The motion on the floor is to reschedule to July 18th. So my second, I presume I can't second it.
Yeah, you can second as a
Acting chair?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But Stephen, I guess the question that you raise is, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've allowed short-term crushing permits before, haven't we? I mean, right? I mean, we can, if that's what I'm hearing you say.
Well, I mean, relatively recently, we allowed a 2-week permit in District 5. I don't know the code backwards and forwards as it relates to these activities. I don't know if there's a, any kind of precedent for something in between 2 weeks and a year. I don't know that. Horace can speak to that.
But they're not asking for a temporary
No.
crushing permit. And so if Jeff's adamant about it and you want to call a motion, we'll call a motion. I would hope that Jeff would be open, because I've been very open to working with them to make it a 30-day, for further just explanation. I mean, I'll make a vote. I mean, but the vote may not be as affirmative as some would want tonight, Robert. So what I'm saying is, quite frankly, it's less than 30 days coming back on July 18th and make a final decision.
Yeah, I mean, it says we can modify it, so I mean, if it's not for a year.
And that was kind of my question.
That's what I'm at. I mean,
Yeah, and maybe that, and maybe that's, maybe that's a.
That may be an option on
Maybe that's
18th.
a discussion on July 18th.
I mean,
But in respect to what the chairman's asking for, if that's what the chairman's asking for, that's what I'm going to support, so.
Go ahead.
If I can, we are open to a 90-day permit, it's some type of permit but we have been shut down because we were in that domain for a while now. I mean, we're not able to operate a business. So we are fine with a 90-day permit, a shorter permit, just to show you all that we can comply with these requirements. If that's something that the board it sounds like that's a consideration. We are open to that.
All right, Mr. Clark, you maybe have a seat. Let us talk about it for a second. Jeff, if you want to make a comment, sure. All right. Commissioner? So that 90.
I don't think it's the, yeah.
Is that more true?
I don't think that quite frankly, I mean, it's not the convincing of this board at this point. You have a split neighborhood, and I think that there's a little bit more work that needs to be done within that neighborhood.
Okay, and, all right, Commissioner, if that's where you've landed.
Can I ask a question?
Commissioner Scholar.
I've been waiting, I appreciate it, because I know we're on the administrative side here, but I actually have some, first of all, I don't know you, I've talked to you on the phone one time, but I was disheartened by the eminent domain that they took your property and then you had to move, and I think you're trying to meet the intent. Safety is my number one concern. I'll be honest with you, that's the number one concern. Got to be. But I have another question. And I don't think we've met they haven't been in non-compliance of any of the EPA or any standard at this point. Is that correct? I don't think they have been.
That's correct.
And I have a separate question. How many people do you employ and are they working now because of this? Okay, Chips, you first, because I'm just I'd like to know how many people work out there and if they're unemployed or what's going on.
Sure. Just to answer your first question, county staff has been monitoring the air quality at the previous facility for 7 years now. 47 different air samples were taken, and of those, there were 6 that were in violation of the permit, that exceeded the permit requirements.
Okay. In 7 years. What's that, a fine? Chips, what do we do when that happens? We give them a fine?
Yeah.
They were shut down until they came back into
Okay.
compliance. Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Gibson, can you share how long you've been out and how many people are employed? And is this putting a long-term risk to your business?
Okay. We've been crushing concrete on Old Palafox for about 7.5 years. The neighbors that we had there are really the same neighbors we have now. We're just right around the corner. The same neighbors. They all know what we do. Every one of them drove by Old Palafox, could see in. You open, it's not that anything was hidden. When the gates were open, you see the whole facility. So there's nothing hidden with what we do. And as far as the employees, it all varies. Certain times of the year, we may have 5 working there, maybe 7. But there's some times of the year, we may have 2.
Okay.
I mean, we just lost our best part of the year. We've been shut down since January. When we moved from Old Palafox, they made us move. We were supposed to have a few months to prepare to move. The state came in and said, hey, you got 2 weeks. And we had nowhere to go.
How much revenue you lost? Do you want to share that with me? You don't have to, but.
I don't have a clue right now. I wasn't prepared for that kind
Oh,
of
that's
question.
okay.
I wasn't prepared for that. But everybody in the area knows what we crush concrete. So, I mean, it's not a matter of educating them. They know.
Jeff, wait, quick question. Mrs. Pat, Ms. Green said that y'all are already crushing.
No, we are not crushing.
Okay.
We have moved the crusher in, and this is what we have done modifications. We have, the concrete companies drop off a little bit of their concrete. So what we did, we made the best of it. We built a concrete pad for the crusher to sit on. That way, when it's on, no dust. No, at the other facility, we'd keep a sprinkler to keep everything wet around it. This is on a concrete pad. This facility, we're able to set up the way we want it. The other one, we was kind of stuck with what we had to work with. But we're improving constantly, making this facility so much better. I'm proud of this place.
So it was just a drop-off facility, there was no crushing, is what you're saying?
I'm sorry.
I said it was a drop-off, not a crushing site. You just staged material there.
Right. Right, yeah, we don't have a permit to crush at Burgess Roads. No, we are not.
Okay.
And I will say, as far as Miss Green at 182, I was there at her back porch. The lady I talked to that came to the town hall meeting and came to the last meeting here, she had to take off and go to the house because she had eggs boiling on the stove. I was there.
Thank you. I think we're limited to board discussion now because there is a motion.
I guess the only thing, I'm fine with what you want, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would like to consider is the last meeting, I think that they half met the intent, maybe all met the intent. They were supposed to go back and have a town hall meeting and talk to them. I asked yesterday in my weekly meeting, I asked a lot about this because I wasn't really sure where we were going to go with this. But I think a temporary permit, I kind of think that, in my mind, that's the right thing to do by these folks, but maybe the board doesn't think so.
I can't carry a motion. If someone makes a substitute motion, that's on them.
I'll make a motion to give this company a 90-day permit. Can we do that?
We need to do.
That's what I said, we have to close the other one. I told you, I don't think we can. Yeah.
We need to do a conditional use and then address the permit, in my opinion.
And here's the reality. None of that's going to even get through permitting in 30 days by July 18th. And so, you can make that's fine. Or we can come here on the 18th and make a final decision, but you can make that motion if you want. I don't care.
For me, it's just the eminent domain that this company got taken out. I just don't think that's right, and they've been out since January. I have a concrete company right across the Bow Chico Bridge. I don't know much about concrete. I know Chairman May does. But I'll make a motion, a 90-day conditional permit for them to crush concrete at this site.
You can't do that. There's already a motion on the floor.
Well, I'll make a motion to, I didn't. Can we rescind that? Someone that made it has to.
I'm not going to rescind the motion. There's a motion and a second on the floor. We can vote it up or we can vote it down.
Okay. Well, then I guess we got to vote, right? That's where we're at.
That's where we at.
Yeah.
I'll pass the gavel. Call the question, Mr. Chair. Do you need clarification for the motion?
No, sir, I'm just missing Commissioner Burgash's vote. I'm sorry, Commissioner Burgash.
That passes 3 in favor and 2 no to not vote it down, but to bring it back on July 18th for a final decision. Thank you. Horace?
Yes, sir. We have our GMR action item number 1. This is a recommendation for approval of the comprehensive plan annual report.
Do we have any speakers, Mr. Chairman?
No, sir.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote.
That's it. You ready? Have they voted?
Waiting on.
Mr. Chairman, there were 5 yes votes.
Oh,
It came up, but it already
Oh,
went
my
away.
bad.
I'm sorry.
5 yes. Horace?
Yes, sir. The next item is a recommendation for a final plat for Pine Top subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, before there's a motion and a vote, I need to disclose conflict. I, Stephen Berry, hereby disclose on June 8, 2023, a measure came or will come before my agency which inured to the special gain or loss of Todd Stafford of McKenna Development LLC. Escambia County Board of County Commissioners meeting June 8, 2023, Growth Management Report Action item number 2, recommendation concerning Pine Top subdivision, permit final plat 2304-1731 PSD-FP presents a conflict of interest pursuant to statute 112-3143 Florida statutes or the appearance of a conflict of interest pursuant to statute 286.012 Florida statutes because Todd Stafford of McKenna Development is a client of mine.
Thank
So
you,
I will
Commissioner.
abstain.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do we have any speakers on this item?
No, sir.
I move the item in the affirmative.
Second. And just make sure you give that to Larry also.
That passes 4 in favor, Commissioner Berry abstaining. Horace?
Yes, sir. The next item is the consent agenda for July 18th.
Move the
With the
consent
understanding that B, the rezoning case Z 23-10, at the planning board meeting, that case was dropped.
Thank you, Horace. We'll entertain the consent agenda.
Consent agenda with,
With rezoning case number 3,
All right,
what-
to reschedule to any date certain?
they did not give a date at that
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you. Was that a motion, Robert? Second.
as amended, I guess.
I second.
We have a motion.
How are we waiting on?
Mr. Chairman, that was also 5 yes votes. It only stays up for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I see Horace already left. He was going after those chocolate chip cookies, though, you know, he come in.
No, John, he had to go catch those concrete crushers. Wes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 16 items on the technical public service consent agenda. There are no changes and there are no speakers.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Please vote. Passes 5 in favor. Thanks. Wes?
Yes, sir. There are 42 items on the budget finance consent agenda. Please make the following changes. Drop card 2-6, card 2-27, and card 2-28. Hold for speakers, card 2-30, card 2-33, and card 2-36.
Sorry, Wes, can you just say which ones we're dropping again?
Card 2-6, card 2-27, and 28.
All right, we'll entertain a motion for the balance.
Sorry, what about 25? Are we dropping?
Flood mitigation? Are you dropping it, Wes, or? It's,
Yes, we'll drop that as well.
All right.
25.
It just ties in with 27, 28.
All right.
All right. Robert, did you move the balance?
I have not done anything yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I moved the balance.
Second.
So, all right, so please vote.
Mr. Chairman, there were 5 yes votes.
I'm missing it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could for just a brief moment with the vote you just took, we approved a resolution that will allow us to receive 4 buses from FDOT, and I think Rod just wanted to say a few words about that.
Thank you. I just wanted to just first just take a chance over the podium just to thank FDOT, Miss Debbie Tony Pro and Zach Basalone, and those people from District 3 just seeing us at Escambia County Area Transit and allowing us this opportunity to advance our service. That's something that we look forward to doing, and I'm sure that these 4 vehicles, they'll be beneficial because they are smaller, and they'll be beneficial to the direction that we're heading. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Ron. Car 2-30, we have a speaker, Chris Kerb and Keith Bowe.
Keith Bowie had to leave, but he asked me to tell you to thank you in advance if you approve this. And I rise in support of this contract award. This is the second phase of a project that started in basically a 2003 master plan for Beach Haven that was funded by the CRA. This Beach Haven community really needs this project, as well as the Beach Haven zone to the south, that y'all have a grant application going on, and as well as the Beach Haven Northwest zone, which has not been funded yet. But I believe this is the 3rd time this project's been bid. I'll skip all the details about all that. Y'all know what they are. But more you delay, the more you pay. So I think you need to go ahead and push this through. Staff ought to be commended for rolling with the punches on this project over the years. With Joy on board, I've seen a lot more drainage projects coming through, so you should kudos to staff. Thank you.
Please vote.
I move the item.
I was gonna say, don't we need a motion?
Oh, we need a motion, yeah, we need. Well, yeah, well, vote however you want to vote.
I'll second it.
You made it move, right, Steve?
Approve it?
Robert, need you vote? Passes 5 in favor, thank you. Wes?
All right.
I want to thank everyone on the board for supporting that. And just before we move on, I've heard more about that project in the 7 months you don't even know. So thank you all for supporting that project. It means a lot to me and the people of Beach Haven.
No problem.
Thank
Wes?
you, Mr. Car 2-33, Chris Kerb.
Again, I rise in support of this contract award. You heard from Dan Danforth earlier with Project Hydrology, the groundwater energy passive system to improve the recharge capacity of the existing pond there. I've been out to this neighborhood multiple times, and when it floods Harris Boulevard, you can't drive down it. It's so deep. So I'm glad to see this project come through. I talked to Clara a little bit about there's several properties that have been purchased by the county in there. Some have been demoed on Diego Circle and Harris Boulevard, and I asked her, what's the plans for this? They were purchased and demoed due to blight, and that kind of goes with what I talked about in the public forum today. But this is due to blight, but flooding is also issues. So Clara informed me that hopefully this can be some affordable housing that goes in there, especially if you get the drainage situation fixed. So I'm all in support of this one. Thank you.
Chris, just so you'll know, part of the holdup on that has been fixing the drainage, and so this should fix the drainage. Well, we can do the infill building, and so I'm sure Clara told you that, but that's that's the process.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chris. Chair, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Passes 5-0. Thank you. Wes?
We have car 2-36. We have one speaker, Victoria Griffin. She may have left.
If she's gone, we'll entertain a motion for car 36.
I'll move it in the affirmative.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Thanks. Passes 5-0. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, CAR 3-1 is a recommendation concerning selection and appointment of committee members to the Escambia County City of Pensacola Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. We'll be passing out the ballots.
Are any of these people here? Claire, are any of these people working with us on this list with the county? Drew Buchanan, Laura Green, Beth Little, are they a part of our housing program at all? Not right now. Okay, all right. Here, you want me to?
Mr. Chairman, we have 1 vote for Drew Buchanan, 2 votes for Lauren Green, and 2 votes for Beth Little.
All right. So we'll get another ballot with Lauren
Do we
Green
need
and
2
Beth
people or
Little.
1 person?
I believe it's just 1.
So now we'll get a second ballot with 2 people on it.
I think it'll still have the 3 unless Jose's going to make a new
I
one.
wouldn't think that that's what we would do. I would think we would take the two
But
that had 2 votes and put them on one
It's,
ballot.
it's up to the board.
I
And
think that's,
see, and-
historically, that's how we
and-
would have handled it.
agreed.
If
And
we have one
A,
spot.
and also see, they're asking you and A to deal with that.
Yeah, well, I
one
think
other
A
person.
is by itself, but that'll be part of the
Correct.
motion. For the next ballot, if we'd have the two female applicants, then we can choose one. One will win that. I think that's the way math works, so.
And I'm at a loss, and maybe I should have done homework. That's what, Claire, I was asking. It simply says appoint 1 of all applicants as a representative of citizens who is actually engaged as an advocate for low-income persons in connection with affordable housing. So, I mean, if none, I would think if these people are engaged in, affordable housing, that they would be on your radar.
Claire, what if we move the first portion of the item and maybe re-advertise for the second portion?
Yeah.
Is there any appetite for that, since no one did get a majority?
Yeah, I support, I like that.
All right.
We have a motion and a second.
All right, is that clear? So my motion is to appoint Renee Will Hoyt and to one of the spots and to re-advertise for the second spot.
That passes 5-0. Claire, I mean, can you I know that you do a lot of affordable housing and you have all those committees, so I'd like to, have a little background on,
Like a resume for these individuals?
yes,
Okay. Thank you.
to see who's engaged.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
Lubin,
Chairman,
I thought that was a great, if they're engaged, how do I know?
Yeah, how you know? Yeah, I mean, I would think Claire would know them through the CRA, through our affordable housing. If they're engaged in affordable housing, I would think that our housing people would know them. Our SHIP people should know them. I mean, I wouldn't understand if they're engaged why no one knows them.
Mr. Chairman, CAR 3-2, it's not really a discussion item, could have went with consent, but it's a recommendation concerning the agreement for the funding of court personnel between First Judicial Circuit of Florida and Escambia County, Florida. This is we fund the front money for the Veterans Court coordinator, and then we would get reimbursed throughout the year through monthly payments from Court Innovation.
All right, we don't have any speakers?
No speakers.
I move the item A, B, and, I'm sorry, A and B.
Second.
Yeah, definitely.
Passes 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, card 3-3 is concerning USI Insurance Services and Benefits Renewal Discussion. I know Ms. Badura has met with some of you and forwarded some information out. We do have a USI representative here, should y'all have questions.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a comment, not necessarily a question, but I don't know if Crystal or the USI representative, whoever is most appropriate.
Benefits managers here.
Yeah, and I thank you for, we did make a change last year with dental. And I think I'm who brought that up, and I have heard from some of the same, not some of the same employees, but from some of the same constitutional offices, different employees at those, and some different board employees that, I guess there's a tremendous amount of change, the insurance markets are constantly changing, and the dental provider that we went with has fallen off of some of the local providers' insurance or favored insurance providers. What about, and this was brought up last year, but we didn't do it, but would there be an appetite to having two choices for employees and maybe, really giving another option to bring Delta back on as an option for employees, as a second option?
Yeah, if you want to do it.
Yeah, this is, it's pretty quick turnaround, but to, 6 months into it, to get some feedback that some of the providers are not going to be accepting MetLife anymore.
So, and maybe USI can talk about this. Is it just the way it's going? I'm saying I probably haven't kept up with this as much as I should have, or as much as I was when I was doing it. But, I think there's somewhat of an industry change, if I'm not mistaken, in that much like physicians have consolidated to work for hospitals, dentists may be regulated to working for the insurance companies. And I'm seeing some head nods. But I don't know if it's typical to offer two dental plans or what that does for us. So I'd like to, but I'm just saying, I think no matter who we go with, I think the way that dental is going, we may not be able to get everybody happy, and that's just,
Well, fortunately, I don't speak to everybody.
Yeah.
the handful of folks that I do speak to, I don't know if it's possible. Then I'm not. Exponentially more than I do, and these ladies may know more than you do. But what do y'all think?
Well, thank you for the question. Thanks for having us. First of all, to talk to Mr. Bender's point is that dentists that are in network actually contract to receive a certain amount of money for their services. And they can elect to go in and out of network anytime they want to. There are some sort of provisions, usually 2 to 3 years. So you may see some turnover and some traction because they don't want to accept those negotiated rates. So that's number one. So that's to Mr. Bender's point. The second thing is when we go out to do a market search and we say, hey, look, this employer group is really interested in dental coverage, and I go to Delta Dental is going to come back to me and say, we only want to be the only carrier. So there's some adverse selection situations associated with multiple carriers with the same coverage types, and very rarely do we see 2 different dental carriers come into the market. That doesn't mean we can't do that. We'll certainly take that back and see if there are some dental carriers that would like to work together in that fashion.
Okay.
But your request was to specifically go back to Delta.
We can certainly go back to Delta as well.
Or
My request is to entertain the discussion. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
ask.
yeah.
And you know,
I mean, that's a motion. I mean, you want to add that to the motion, Commissioner Berry?
I don't know that we have to take action, but it's just, hopefully this is.
So, I mean,
enough.
it's
This is
clear.
good.
We understand
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
let me do this. I mean, do we want to just hold dental and do the other stuff? I mean, it says discuss and then approve and authorize the county administrator to sign any of the, so,
Is it time sensitive, Wes? Do we have to sign it tonight? Can we bring it back on the 18th after they had the discussion without it impeding anything?
So the motions here are just for us to be able to entertain with USI, to go back with these concerns that you all have, and potentially negotiate, do some research. So just like with the dental, all this is asking, we want to come back to you on July 18th with our findings and with our recommendations for the.
Well, that's fine, but so can you take Commissioner Berry's thoughts in mind
Absolutely.
with the negotiation, make sure that's included when you bring it back on the 18th?
Are we doing any better on health insurance stuff? Have
Yes.
we improved as a group any financially?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
We are only at, I think, 83%.
yeah, we've got a
of
good,
our-
we have a
We have
good,
had
good
huge
year going right
improvements.
now.
The current loss ratio is 83.6
Yes.
Okay.
through 4 months
Oh, okay.
of
And that's a-
2023, which
and
is
that's-
much better than it has been in the past.
Yeah, if you have it quickly available, what was it, year over year?
2022 was 90%, 2021 it was 111%, 2020 113%, and 2019 103.
Yeah, that doesn't sound ideal. Okay. And
So
it's not
you're,
due
you're
to.
trending in the right direction, which
Okay,
is what we
so-
like to see.
Hopefully that's good.
So I think some of the things was the consolidated work site. I think some of this is that, I'll let you guys talk about it, but it sounds like it's probably the right thing to do to try to just make it cleaner for everybody, especially when it's only pockets of people that are being offered some of these things and.
I'm sorry, whatever y'all think with that. That was my only comment
Okay.
was about the dental.
Okay, all right. So would Terry entertain a motion?
Do we need a,
We don't even need a
do we need
motion.
action?
Do we need action, Alice? No, thank y'all.
They just asked for approval to.
Okay, that's fine. County Attorney's report?
Sir, there's one item on the county attorney's report. I can answer questions if there are any.
Move the item A and B.
Second.
That passes 5-0. Thank you. There are no items added to the agenda, so we stand adjourned. I tried. I won't see you guys for a while. Oh, no, I'll see you tomorrow.